Life happens everywhere. Like it never even happened, only happens here. The cleanup and restoration specialists at 1-800-SERVPRO and SERVPRO.com.
The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real-world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $100,000 in annual prizes. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Every day in business starts with a number. Output, productivity, efficiency, all measured in numbers, because data drives decisions. And if fire or water damage strikes, the numbers for your business can slow or even stop. Unless you know this one, 1-800-SERVPRO, the number one choice in commercial cleanup and restoration.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome live to 3Y TV and the third round of the SERVPRO Wheelman Showdown in the Hacksaw PC's Premier Series. It is going to be an awesome race here from Richmond Raceway, of course, in Richmond, Virginia. I'm Peter Short, and joining me in the booth here tonight is Greg Rentz, and of course, always manning the cameras is Mr. Carlos Acosta. But Greg, short track action here tonight, 3/4 mile racetrack. Always a great show here at Richmond Raceway. A lot of drivers really enjoy racing this racetrack because it is so unique. What are you expecting to see tonight?
Expecting to see a lot of short bumper-to-bumper banging racing here at Richmond Raceway. One of the smallest tracks on the server, like you mentioned, 3/4 mile. It's short in the NASCAR terms. It's one of the bigger short tracks out there, but in NASCAR terms, this is one of the shorter tracks out there, so I'm very excited to be here this evening. One of my favorite tracks here on the server, and the ASRS guys, they are going to put on one heck of a show tonight, as practice has already shown this is going to be a very, very tight field.
It is going to be a very, very tight field. Let's see if we can put those practice times up for you on the left-hand side of the screen, but it is John Jenkins in the number 7 machine, who is atop the leaderboard right now. There you go, left side of your screen. You can see that John Jenkins only 3/1000ths of a second faster than Will Worsler in the number 29 machine. Grant Brown sitting in third. What a good run for Grant Brown in practice so far. We'll have to keep an eye on him. He's got a special paint scheme tonight. Looks absolutely awesome. Kind of a Jeff Gordon throwback from back when they used to run the Looney Tunes schemes here at Richmond. Alan Young sitting in fourth, and Brian Yazik rounding out your top 5. But I'll tell you what, should be a good show here tonight. Well, anyway, the track has gone quiet as all these drivers are in their driver's meeting. And you can see all the cars lined up on pit road. You see a little bit of the action that we had just a little bit ago here on the racetrack with all the cars turning in their practice laps. But let's see if we can possibly dial up one of the drivers, in fact, sponsored by SERVPRO, one of the SERVPRO team racing drivers. That would be Shane Parrish. I believe he's the only driver in the field here tonight who is one of the SERVPRO machines. There's a couple who race here in the Hacksaw PC's Premier Series. Shane Parrish, Peter Short in the 3Y TV booth. You got a copy?
I do.
Well, Shane, I'll tell you what, it's round 3 of the SERVPRO Wheelman Showdown. You got SERVPRO on the hood here tonight. Tell us a little bit about what SERVPRO has to offer.
Well, first off, SERVPRO's got a great system as far as franchises. If anybody out there is ever interested in getting a franchise, just hook up with me and get you set up. Wife and I own 3. We do water, fire, smoke, mold, anything that happens inside your property, from inside your property or outside your property. We also clean coronaviruses. We're doing pre-cleanings and the actual coronavirus cleanings. We've done several. Just got done doing a 500,000 square foot warehouse, cleaning that one so people get back to work. We love what we do.
Absolutely great to have SERVPRO on board for the SERVPRO Wheelman Showdown. Of course, a big prize at the end of it. But Shane, what are your thoughts about coming here to Richmond, and what are your chances of getting to victory lane here tonight?
For me, victory lane tonight's probably going to be a little difficult. Just got a new simulator motion, Rick Motec, and got some new pedals, so it's quite different, new view. So I'm learning all over again, but I'm having fun. So wherever I finish, I just want to finish without.
All right, well, great luck tonight, and give a good show for SERVPRO on the hood of that number 81 machine. Best of luck.
Definitely will. Thank you much, guys. Enjoy your night.
All right, that was Shane Parrish, driver of the number 81 SERVPRO machine. Round 3 of the SERVPRO Wheelman Showdown here in the Hacksaw PC's Premier Series. Very cool to have SERVPRO on board, sponsoring this mini championship within a championship. And I'll tell you what, it has been absolutely dominated by the number 83 of Greg Evans. The first 2 rounds of the SERVPRO Wheelman Showdown have gone to the number 83 machine, and we'll have to see if Greg can go 3 for 3 in the SERVPRO Wheelman Showdown here tonight. That will be something we keep an eye on as this race goes on. But let's see if we can look at the point standings here as we've just moved over into the 10-minute qualifying session. There you go. You can see him right there. John Jenkins atop the leaderboard. He was fastest in practice and atop the leaderboard in the point standings. James Lorello, 46 markers back. That's a pretty significant margin. That's about an entire race. Mitch Brown sitting in third. And if you didn't join us a couple Thursdays ago, Mitch Brown actually won the American Sim Racing Series All-Star Invitational. We actually had Christian Eckes and Austin Hill, 2 NASCAR Xfinity drivers in that race, and Mitch Brown came home with that checkered flag. Will Worsler sitting in 4th, tied with Tyler Seville, Michael Krobach, Christopher Bouchard, Woody Mahan, Ryan Yazik, and Jimmy McKee, rounding out your top 10. But cars are out there on the racetrack for qualifying, and I'll tell you what, Greg, take us through a lap here of the Richmond Raceway.
Well, here we see on track the number 32 Toyota on track right now. Jordan Harnish, who's on top of the charts. As he comes down the backstretch, he's going to try to get in low entry right here as we switch over to Alex Giese. Here in the turn number 1, you kind of take a little bit of a low entry here through 1 and 2. Just kind of roll the center a little bit, pop up here off of the wall. Giese coming down into turn 3 and 4. Right there, you let off just a little bit. Big bobble there, though, from the 77. Not what he wanted to have happen on his qualifying lap. So he will look to reset and try it once again here on the second lap and just shake that off. Just going to come to a stop. Here's the guy who was on top of the charts earlier today, Will Worsler in the number 29. Fastest in final practice in his Chevy Camaro, coming down with Perky Pints on board. Got a little loose there off turn number 2, it looked like, and he is just going to ride the wall and looks like he's just going to call this lap a wash and try it again here on lap number 2, Peter.
Well, let's see what he does coming to the line. That number 29 machine, looks like that was his warm-up lap done. Oh, you know what? He did set a time that lap, sitting last, 20th out of 20 cars to qualify. Currently, Christopher Bouchard is sitting atop the board. Man, Will Worsler was so far down the order after being so fast in practice. I was kind of shocked to see it. We'll see what he does on lap number 2, third on the board for that Slice Perky Pints machine. Great run on lap number 2 for Will Worsler, unable to crack into the top 2, held by Bouchard and Jordan Harnish. There's the number 52 machine. I mentioned him earlier, Grant Brown, running the kind of the Jeff Gordon throwback. Great looking paint scheme on this car. Got the Looney Tunes. Remember, they did the 400 lap race back in the early 2000s where they had the Looney Tunes on the cars, and got Yosemite Sam on that machine. There's the number 19 machine, Cody Spiker going around in that Snap-on Chevrolet, going through turn number 1 and 2 right now. Here's the number 51 machine, Mitch Brown, the other Brown in the field, got Patriot Media and Marketing Solutions on that Toyota. Very, very fast. About 2 weeks ago in the ASRS All-Star Showdown, All-Star Invitational, I should say. And we'll see what kind of lap time he can do here. He wasn't the fastest in practice, but he was up there inside the top 10, and he is going to slot into 7th right now on the grid. There's Alan Young, who sat 4th in practice. We'll see what kind of lap time he can turn here in that number 24 Young Gun Creations machine. He's going to go up into the top 5 with a 5th place run for now. So great qualifying run for Alan Young. Remember, Will Worsler picked it up on lap number 2, so we'll see if Alan Young can do the same. Here's Brian Yazik in the number 55 machine. Had a great qualifying run at Bristol Motor Speedway, just could not back that up with a good finish. He's going to slot into the top 10 in 9th. There's the number 7 machine, John Jenkins, fastest in the practice session. And Jenkins in the number 7 machine is going to put it P7. So 7 for 7 for John Jenkins here, as we have still about half of the qualifying session left to go. We have had 31 of the 40 cars here tonight take time in this one. I'll tell you what, 40 cars, Greg, around Richmond Raceway. It is going to be a pretty chaotic event for these drivers,
especially in the opening race, and that's going to be one of the keys here to making this race work. This is a 200-lap race with 40 cars on the track. You're going to have to keep a lot of patience in the early going and not get too far ahead of yourself and try to get up front in the early stages. It's a long race, 200 laps, 40 cars on deck. Things are going to get antsy in a hurry here at this very tight 3/4 mile oval. These drivers are going to have to show a lot of patience in the early going for this one with this big a field, with this long a race.
Yeah, it definitely is a long race. 150 miles around this racetrack, where really you're not averaging but maybe about 130 miles an hour. So it is going to be a long race. Even if we didn't have a caution, it'd be more than an hour. But I do expect to see a couple of cautions, although these American Sim Racing Series drivers have surprised me in the past here in the Hacksaw PC's Premier Series. It's called the Premier Series for a reason. You're not just allowed to enter the Premier Cup Series here. You actually have to go through a trial process. There's a development series. If you're good enough in the development series, you can earn a Premier Series license. And if you earn that Premier Series license, then you're eligible for getting into these races. But it's going to be, interesting to see what these drivers do with 40 cars out there. Always put on a show. We saw a fantastic race a couple weeks back at the Bristol Motor Speedway, another short track, but this racetrack just races so differently. Let's see if we can go on board with driver of the number 46 machine. That would be Christopher. I think he's out there practicing, just getting a few extra laps in. And I want to kind of highlight the most difficult portion of this entire racetrack, in my opinion, is right here, getting into turn number 1. You're dragging the brakes, you're riding the brakes all the way into the corner. The front straight is not at all straight. They call it the front straight because, a lot of racetracks it is straight, but here it isn't. It's just curved the whole way, and you have this long curve into turn number 1. You're dragging the brake, you're playing with the brake bias. These drivers do have the ability to play around with the brake bias, plus or minus 3%. It is a fixed setup, so they can't affect that, but they can play around with the brake bias. And each driver is going to tune that to their liking and how the car adjusts over the run. Another thing you're going to have to watch out for tonight is wheel spin coming off the corner as these tires wear out. Ultimately, you're much more susceptible to wheel spin and losing control of the car when you try and apply all the horsepower down into the Goodyear rubber. And so as these runs go on, these cars definitely get quite slippery, and we'll have to keep an eye on that. I want to give a shout out to some of the people we have in the chat. We got the DMLC Racing channel. Of course, that's Mark Cohn, Kathy Rose. Hey, Aunt Kathy, how are you doing? Twitchy Race Reports in the chat. Nikki Worsler, of course, always rooting on the Will Worsler Racing cars. And we got Fast Koozie in the chat as well. How's it going? We got Mark Cohn saying, I call him the Mad Professor. Speaking of Mr. 72, Michael Krobach, because he has the best pit strategy. So we'll have to keep an eye on whether or not Michael Krobach can use that pit strategy to his advantage tonight in the number 72 machine. In fact, where is that number 72 machine currently? 24th out of the 32 cars yet to take time. Here is the 02 machine. That is Sam Crow. I believe the 02 might have been an alternate here tonight. So he will be in the show, which I'm sure he will be glad to see. We did have provisionally 32 qualifiers for the 20 remaining spots in the pre-qualifying that we had earlier. 20 cars are automatically locked into the show, and then 32 cars vied for the last 20 spots. So on paper, we had 12 cars go home, but looks like the 02 machine will get in. I believe Michael Whiting was one of the alternates as well. He will also be in tonight's show, Greg.
So a full field here at Richmond, qualifying just winding down. We're in the final minute, which means, Peter, it's getting close to go time here at Richmond. 200 laps on deck here. Looks like 32 drivers of the 40 entered in this main event are going to take time, as we have reached the final 20 seconds. And unless someone else is able to make it out right now, I don't see anyone else getting out there to take a time.
Yeah, there is no cars on the racetrack right now, so no one will get to the start-finish line in time to turn a lap, so it will be Christopher Bouchard. We've seen some great runs out of that number 50 here over the last few weeks in the Hacksaw PC's Premier Series, so he's going to back that up here for a great qualifying run. And what about driver number 83 machine, Greg Evans? He's going to be rolling off 8th, the winner of the first two SERVPRO Wheelman Showdown events at Texas Motor Speedway and Atlanta Motor Speedway. This, of course, a very different racetrack to those two, so we'll have to keep an eye on him. Excuse me, that would be Bristol Motor Speedway and Atlanta Motor Speedway. But Greg Evans, man, he has been on an absolute tear. But let's see if we can go down to the starting grid, go through tonight's starting lineup, so we can set up tonight's field for you. Christopher Bouchard, like we mentioned, starting on the pole in the number 50 machine. Jordan Harnish will roll off from the outside of row number 1. Starting on row number 2, the 29 machine of Will Worsler and Craig Stykes in the number 57 machine. These two can't get away from one another in qualifying. The 29 and the 57, they always qualify near one another. Alan Young and Brandon Stokes, 5th and 6th. Starting on row number 4, John Jenkins in the number 7 machine and Greg Evans. Brian Yazik, as you can see on your screen, and Mitch Brown will roll off on row number 5 there, Greg.
Grant Brown will roll off in the 11th spot, beginning the second 10 here with Doug Mullins to his outside in the number 18. Jackson Von Volkenberg rolls off in the 13th to his outside. The 28 of Troy Haight rolled off 15th will be the 71 of Adam Jersky to his outside. Clarence Bonner, the final car to go in the 21.6 second bracket. Travis McDaniel rolls off 17th to his outside. Jimmy McKee in the number 8. Sam Crow and Tyler Seville, who had a good run going at the start of that All-Star Showdown a couple of weeks ago, will roll off in the 20th position. Peter.
Yeah, Cody Spiker in the number 19 will roll off from 21st, with Ty Hester in the 36 to his outside. James Lorello will start 23rd. Michael Krobach, like we mentioned, will roll off from 24th. Mark Cones, Mad Professor. We'll have to start calling him that. 25th position will be the number 10 of Nick Curling, to his outside the number 66 of Ed Bray. 27th position to Danny Rogers in the number 95 machine. 28th position, I should say, is the 22 of Michael Whiting. 29th position, Jonathan Holstein. 30th is Christopher Grigg.
Alex Giese and Kelsey Rogers, the final two drivers to take time tonight. Drivers that did not take time: John Broussard, Tony Schoen, Shane Parrish, Tim Knott, Mark Myers, Jared Haggerty, Jason Stewart, and Lee Staples. Those are your 40 cars that will make up the grid tonight, Peter.
Yeah, so it's going to be a long race, 150 miles, 200 laps around the three-quarter mile racetrack. And my keys to get into victory lane here tonight, really, one, play around with the brake bias. I mentioned it before. It's such an important adjustment here at this racetrack with that long curve entry into turn number 1. Really, it allows you to roll more speed through the center of the corner if you can fine-tune that just to your liking. And of course, the second one, stay out of accident. To finish first, you must finish. That is going to be something that we always talk about at short tracks, and Richmond Raceway is like none other. Pace car is on pit road. I should say pace truck is on pit road because it is the Chevy Silverado. We're green flag here at Richmond Raceway, Greg.
Bouchard gets out to the early lead, but Harnish coming back on the outside. Borsler trying to get him up and settle into the third spot. A good run down the backstretch for Harnish as he gets the nose in front of Bouchard. Borsler tucks down in behind Bouchard. Drag race to the line to lead lap number 1. Give it to the 32 of Harnish.
Yeah, great job by Jordan Harnish. A great start to the race. Usually we see that outside line get caught sleeping, but Harnish did not. Now he's lost a little bit of ground to Bouchard through turn number 1 and 2. Stuck up there on the high line, but looks like Borsler, whoa, almost contact between the 29 of Borsler and the 32. And the 24 machine of Alan Young had to check up because there was a big stack up when Borsler almost ran into the back of the number 32 on lap number 2. And you can see that gap grow between the second and third place machines, side by side a little bit further back. There's the number 83 of Greg Evans around the outside. New paint scheme on that car. Got sure tape on the number 83 this week. Now he's going to slot in behind the number 24 of Alan Young. Single file back to Brandon Stokes, and caution flag is out.
Caution out here early. It sounds like it's the 66 of Edward Bray who is off in the infield here on the front stretch. We take a look at the 3Y TV replay. Got loose, got into the 46 and nose in the wall. 33, nowhere for him to go. Saw some damage also to the 77 of PC in front of this Peter.
Yeah, man, it's one of those things. I mentioned it before that you can get wheel spin on the long run, but it's very difficult to get the power down. As you see Christopher there, unfortunately get some damage in the number 46 machine. So, you know, that happens here at Richmond. It really does. Here we go on board with Tony Schoen here in the number 33 machine. There's Shane Parrish down there in the number 81 SERVPRO machine. We talked to him prior to the race. See them coming out of turn number 4 here. And, yeah, a little bit of damage to that number 3 machine, I do believe. So tough luck for him running into the side of the number 66 machine. But we do have a couple of cars headed down pit road already, including Shane Parrish. We're seeing quite a few cars actually come down pit road. A little bit more than I was expecting at this point in the race there, Greg.
Yeah, some drivers in the second half of the field coming in. They figure, well, why not? We got a few laps in. Might as well come in, get some fresh tires, and maybe they have a little bit more of an advantage later on in a long green flag run with these extra few laps that these drivers up in the front half of the field will have on those tires. If they can get a long green flag run, it could work out. So maybe a couple of them just coming in, get some new tires on, and see what their car does on super fresh tires, as maybe they just didn't like the way they started out. Maybe some of them slid the tires like you were talking about, and they're just playing it safe.
Tire wear is something you always talk about when you come to Richmond and how those tires progress throughout the run. Question for the chat. If you're in the chat right now, would you have pit if you were in the 20th position? Would you have come down for fresh tires here at this point in the run? I want to hear what you have to say here just a few laps in. We do have Unseelie Turtle in the chat. How's it going? Saying good evening and good luck to all the drivers. Hope you're doing well as well. Gotta say to everyone watching right now, please stay safe, please stay healthy. Of course, this is a very interesting time, and this will go down in the history books, I'm sure, at least for the next 50 years. But very interesting time. Nicky Warser saying no, but I don't know much about it. Kathy Rose on the other side saying heck yes. Ronnie Smith saying no. It is interesting. If you're in the middle of the field, yeah, it's a gamble. But we do have the 1 to green here in the middle of the field. They do have a tire limit, remember, so you do have to keep that in mind. Maybe a lot of cars just coming down and taking fuel. I'm looking at pit lane time. A lot of drivers decided to not take tires. Some of them took tires. I don't know. It's all over the place. But the pace truck is headed down pit road. That Chevy Silverado says see you later. And there goes the number 50 machine, Christopher Bouchard, on the loud pedal. He's going to clear Jordan Harnish into turn number 1.
Harnish actually took a peek to the bottom there going into turn number 1, but Bouchard was able to shut the door as the side-by-side battle continues for the third spot between Horsler and Stykes. Stykes is going to get the spot going into turn number 3, and that leaves Horsler side-by-side with Greg Evans, Alan Young, and John Jenkins behind that. Bouchard continues to lead, and I've noticed it more and more watching Cup Series races throughout the last few weeks. That inside line is just so strong on the initial restart because of the fact. Sorry, Peter, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Brian Yazik in the number 55 HPPsimulation.com machine. We're going to have to go back and watch this on the 3-wide TV replay. About half a lap ago, he almost got turned around here coming out of turn number 2. Watch this. Oh, he just got the apron. I thought there might have been a little bit of help from behind from the number 18 of Mullins, but I take that back, Doug. No fault of your own, because it looks like Yazik just caught a little bit too much apron. And as we're now back live, he's side-by-side with the number 99 machine, Clarence Bonner to his outside. There's Adam Jersky a little bit further back. There you go. There you see Yazik in just outside the top 10 in the 12th position. A little bit of issues there with Clarence Bonner, maybe a little bit of warping on that car. There's been a big discussion about warping in the American Sim Racing Series after the event a couple weeks back at the Bristol Motor Speedway, but we're pretty much single file now all the way back to the 13th position, where Jackson Van Valkenburg is now side-by-side with the 55 of Yazik.
Van Valkenburg on the inside of Yazik. Yazik doing a good job recovering after catching the apron. If you catch the apron in a spot like that, that can really mess you up and get you out of your rhythm for quite a few laps. And Yazik did a great job recovering and minimizing the damage there that was done to his track position as Van Valkenburg gets the spot. Here comes the 8 of McKee to the inside now of Yazik. So now Yazik kind of stuck on the outside, Peter, and looks like the inside lane really seems to be the one that you want to be in here so far.
So far, yeah, I would definitely say so. I mean, we saw that charge right at the beginning when Jordan Harnish tried to get around the 50 of Bouchard, but wasn't quite able to clear him. But beyond that, really the inside line is where you're going to want to be here tonight. And I got to say, that's pretty normal for Richmond. One thing that isn't really normal for Richmond is the fact that we're racing in the middle of the day. A lot of Richmond races are run at night. Racing in the day definitely heats up that track temperature, causes the race cars to be just a little bit more slippery. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that here tonight. I mentioned how slippery these cars get. There you have a couple of teammates running together, the 55 of Yazik and the 72 of Michael Krobach. You see them right there running right behind Adam Jersky. They're running 18th and 19th. Yazik sliding back from his 9th place start back to 18th after that long slide. In fact, Yazik has almost lost the most spots since the start of this race. Meanwhile, the 72 machine at Krobach, he's moving up through the field from 24th up to 19th. Greg?
So Yazik, that's a product of when he was able to recover. He was stuck on the outside. The inside lane was able to just freight train him all the way back to the 18th position. Fortunately, he found his teammate back there and let him in, and now they're kind of just riding it out, settling things down with the 28 of Troy Haight behind him. And Haight taking a little bit of a higher line through 3 and 4 that time, taking a peek on the outside of Krobach. So right now, drivers just kind of settling it down. They know it's a long way to go, 200 laps. We're only on lap 19, so still not even an eighth of the way into this race. Long way to go, so drivers not really pushing the envelope so far here, Peter, and I think we're going to see a lot of that for quite a bit. I don't think we're really going to start seeing guys push the envelope until around the second half of the race.
Like I said earlier, to finish first you must finish. And I think there is going to be a little bit of patience out there from a lot of these drivers. We did have a question in the chat. If you're watching this race VOD and you don't have the chat active, what about Richard Fletcher? Well, Richard Fletcher was in the qualifying session, but he did not get to turn a qualifying time. Not quite sure what the circumstances are around that, but hope all is well with Richard Fletcher, but he is not in tonight's 40-car field. Currently led by Christopher Bouchard in the number 50 machine. Jordan Harnish started second, running second in the Kirkwood Dispatch Services Toyota Camry. Good start for him. Craig Stykes, he got around his team owner, the 29 machine of Will Worsler. And Greg Evans, winner of the first 2 SERVPRO Wheelman Showdown races. He is now into the top 5. Here's Jackson Van Valkenburg going underneath the 51 machine of Mitch Brown. This is a battle for the 11th position. Van Valkenburg going to take that spot from Brown. Jimmy McKee right behind Mitch. We'll see what McKee can do in that number 8 machine. Like you said, Greg, a great run just about 2 weeks ago in the American Sim Racing Series All-Star Invitational. There you see the 11, Tyler Seville, trying to get underneath the number 72 machine of Crowbox. So Seville in the number 11 machine, back in the 21st position now after getting around Crowbach. Crowbach had rocketed his way up into the top 20. Now he slid back a couple spots down to the 22nd position, but we now go on board with Greg Evans, the man who has been moving up through the top 10 from 8th on the grid, now up into 5th, and he's all over the back bumper of Will Worsler.
Yeah, I've been watching this battle go on for about the last 5 laps. Evans has really been doing a good job getting to the bumper of Will Worsler. Just hasn't really been able to get a good run to try to complete the pass just yet. As we see right here, he's kind of searching around. He's hunting. He's trying different lines, seeing where Worsler's better than he is, and he might get a run here. No, Worsler able to shut the door, but right now Greg Evans, he's hunting. He's trying to find where he's better than Worsler, where Worsler's better than him, and where he might be able to capitalize and make the move. It seems like so far Evans seems to think he's better in turns 3 and 4 than Worsler is. That's where he made his move last time, but Worsler was able to shut the door. We'll see if he tries it again here. No, as Worsler takes a little bit of a lower entry that time, so Worsler going on defense a little bit here. But right now, this battle for the 4th position has really been heating up, but now it's beginning to cool off a little bit as Worsler pulls away as we had side-by-side battle breaks out behind them. John Jenkins was able to get a run to the inside of Alan Young. Jenkins still trying to make the move here into turn number 3, has the 9 of Stokes behind him, has the nose in front of Young as lap traffic ahead here in the form of the 66 of Edward Bray. This is going to play into the role of John Jenkins, who's able to use Young as a pick, and as does Stokes. Great move there by Stokes to get down and follow Jenkins through.
Yeah, so some great battles up here near the front of the field. Looks like your race leader, Christopher Bouchard, has definitely caught lap traffic. Last car in lead lap right now is Nick Curling in the number 10 machine, and we currently have 37 cars on the lead lap. We can report we have had one retirement. Chris Stouffer in the number 46 machine has taken that car to the garage, Greg.
So far, one car down. Battle for second beginning to heat up as well now. Craig Stykes has gotten to the back bumper of Jordan Harnish, and Will Worsler, his teammate, is right there with him, as is Greg Evans. So here comes Stykes with the move to the bottom once again on Harnish. He's going to get the nose in. They're going to be door-to-door through 3 and 4 as they come to the strike. Too close to call. We'll have to go to the scoring. It is Harnish just barely, but Stykes is going to clear him into turn number 1.
Yeah, Stykes cleared him, but he also opened up the door for his teammate, Will Worsler. Harnish got a great run, though, coming out of turn number 2. Going to fend off Worsler, at least for now. But you can start to see how lap traffic is starting to play in to these battles as Harnish wiggles the rear end coming out of turn number 4. You're starting to see those rear tires start to light up, but this has also allowed Brandon Stokes in the number 9 machine to close in on the back bumper of John Jenkins, who's in the 6th spot. Jenkins also closing in on Greg Evans. So from the 3rd place all the way through 7th, it is a very tight battle for position. In fact, you're starting to see even the 24 machine of Alan Young start to close in. Looking over the last 5 laps, fastest car on the racetrack has actually been driver of the number 23 machine, just inside the top 10, Jackson Van Valkenburg. He has been about a 1/10 of a second faster than Craig Stykes and Christopher Bouchard. Good news for Van Valkenburg, though, as he hasn't had any lap traffic to deal with in that number 23 machine. Oh, man, Harnish getting shuffled out. I look away for just a brief moment, and Harnish has been shuffled to the high side, and you can get freight train here at this racetrack. We saw it a little bit on the weekend in the iRacing Pro Invitational. A couple of drivers getting freight train, but Jordan Harnish, he's gone all the way back from 3rd to 5th.
And he got lucky there because Jenkins was able to get a run to the inside of him as well, but something happened and Jenkins had to check up a little bit, which allowed Harnish to shut the door and not lose more spots. But yeah, that was a tough break for Harnish, who was running in the second spot early and got shuffled back to third, and then just gets shuffled by both Worsler and Evans, and now Jenkins making a move to the inside. So perhaps something going a little bit sour on the 32 car, as Jenkins is able to get the spot relatively easily without much of a challenge back from Harnish, as here comes Brandon Stokes to the inside as well. Harnish will be able to fall in behind him before Alan Young gets to him, but something might be going sour on the 32 car, Peter.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if he burned up a little bit too much stuff. They're clipping the apron as well through turn number 1 and 2 in the Kirkwood Dispatch Services number 32 machine. We also are getting word that the second retirement of the race has gone to Nick Curling. Curling had some damage. You also see the number 66 of Ed Bray coming back out onto the racetrack. He's being scored 8 laps down. Tony Schoen in the number 33, he's 2 laps down. 36 cars still on the lead lap. Last car running on the same lap as the race leader is the number 1 machine of Jason Stewart, which I'm a bit surprised with. Got checkered flag PCs on the hood of that number 1 car this week, but hopefully Jason can pick it up. Maybe he's just biding his time at the back of the field. There you see him right there, right behind the 22 of Michael Whiting, who's being scored in 35th. Like I said, Michael Whiting, he was one of the provisional drivers to make it in. He qualified in the 21st spot out of the pre-qualifying that we had earlier, and only 20 cars from the pre-qualifying get to go to the feature race. But lucky for him, he was able to pick up one of the spots, currently running in 35th position. But why don't we go back up to the front? Craig Stykes and Christopher Bouchard, I'm watching their lap times. They kind of keep trading off lap times with one another up at the top of the board. I got to see Craig Stykes start to close in on the number 50 machine, but he's caught some lap traffic kind of poorly over the last few laps, and he's had to lose a little bit of time on that number 57 machine. As Michael Whiting in the number 22 machine, what happened to him? Oh, again, word the number 22 Brookside Equipment Sales machine made some contact with the turn 3 wall, and we'll see if we can go back and see this on the 3-wide TV replay, but he's letting most of the field go by here. It was going off into turn number 3 on this lap. He's right behind the number 26 machine of Lee Staples. And I don't know, it looks like Staples might have caught the wall there coming out of turn number 2, and he dove to the inside, made a little bit of contact with the rear end, locked up the brakes, and bam, into the outside wall. So Michael Whiting will find himself 1 lap down in the 36th position, not where he wants to find himself at this point, battling with a bunch of cars, trying to get the lucky dog if another caution comes out. But I'll tell you what, we have been pretty much caution-free now for about the last 34 laps or so.
Yeah, Bouchard has got to love seeing that, as he's able to put a 1.3 second gap between himself and Craig Stykes. And going back to what you mentioned earlier about Stykes just not being able to catch lap traffic at the right time, it's all matter of when you catch the car in front of you on the track. And sometimes Bouchard is able to get him in the spot of the track that he's able to pretty easily make a pass, whereas Stykes might be getting to their bumper in a spot that it's impossible for him to make a pass, so he has to wait for that next passing zone, and that is allowing Bouchard to be able to focus purely on his line and not have to worry about the car behind him, because he's stuck behind the slower car, and that has allowed Bouchard to open up a 1.3 second lead. It was up to 1.4, but Stykes was able to close it in a little bit this last time by, and now that Stykes has some clear air on the nose of the 57, maybe he's going to be able to slowly start reeling them back in a little bit as Bouchard closes in on lap traffic closer and closer every lap.
All right, so we are closing in on lap number 50. Question for the chat. We have about 120 laps or so in the fuel tank. Do you think you're going to think about maybe splitting it with 2 pit stops here, or do you think you're just going to try and make it 1 pit stop and make it from there? So that's the question for the chat. 120 laps of fuel is what they have in the tank at the start of the race. Let me know what your strategy is, because I'm sure we'll start to see some different strategies here in play relatively soon. It's a fairly short pit delta time here at Richmond Raceway. Tire wear is pretty important. They're running about a second a lap slower than what they were at the start of the race, and they've got about 40 green flag laps on their tires. So keep that in mind. We've got Mark Cohn saying, one stop, save the second set of tires for green-white checker. I like what you're thinking. Quite often we get a green-white checker on short tracks like this. Looking back on the nose of the number 18 machine, that is Doug Mullins. And of course, there we have driver of the number 65 machine, Travis McDaniels, had a few fantastic runs in the Momentum Sim Racing number 65. Got Northland Leisure on that race car, working through turn number 3 and 4, getting a little bit skewed out on entry into number 3 there, Greg.
See how he's able to adjust here as the race wears on. As we see Yazik going now to the inside, he's going to make the pass on the 71. So Yazik trying to get his way back up. Remember, he was the one that caught the apron earlier on in the day, and that shuffled him back quite a few spots. He's trying to get himself back up there, slowly but surely making his way back up through the field.
Yeah, and that will put him up into the 18th position, trying to close in on Kelsey Rogers in the number 34 right in front of him. And Clarence Bonner about a second up the road from Kelsey Rogers in the 16th position. But Jordan Harnish, folks, he's almost slid out of the top 10. Remember, he qualified in the second spot, and now that number 32 machine now back to 10th. Travis McDaniel trying to close in, but they're side by side with the number 18 there of Doug Mullins, the Slice Porcupines machine down there on the inside of the racetrack. Oh, man, almost contact there between the 18 and the 65. It's going to allow Jimmy McKee to slide in underneath the number 65 machine. McKee gonna make the pass off into turn number 1. And folks, we ride on board here with the number 51 machine of Mitch Brown. Looks like a little bit of front end damage on the Patriot Media and Marketing Solutions Toyota Camry. He's trying to find his way around Travis McDaniel, but I want to watch the number 65 machine on entry into these corners. I've noticed that he's been having a little bit of problem with that car just skewing out a little bit. I'm wondering if he has maybe a little bit too much rear brake in that number 65 machine. And having too much rear brake, what it will do is it will cause the rear end of the car to slide out from under you on entry into the corner. What will that do? That will, A, burn up your tires, B, make the tires hot, which, C, reduces grip. And when you have those things happening in conjunction with one another, it's a snowball effect, especially when you're trying to race these other drivers around you. And now we see the 51 machine of Mitch Brown get underneath Travis McDaniel, so move Mitch up into the 13th spot. We'll see if Mitch can close in on Jimmy McKee just outside of the top 10 right now. Inside the top 10, pretty much all single file. Keeping an eye on average lap times, Christopher Bouchard in the number 15 machine. He's actually reasserted himself as the fastest car out on the racetrack. Alan Young also turning good lap times. Brian Yazik, I think Yazik was back there just saving tires. Oh, what happened right there? The number 50 of Bouchard, pretty big checkup. And Bouchard in the number 50 machine, he's got a little bit of front end damage on that race car right now, right behind the 26 machine of Lee Staples. You'll see this on the 3-wide TV replay. Tony showing up there in the number 33 machine, and a little bit of a boink. Number 26 getting a little bit loose there. I'll tell you what, Greg, all of a sudden I'm starting to see a lot of cars sliding around the racetrack, including Ty Hester in the number 36 machine in the Glassdoor Brewing Toyota Camry. That's probably a case of the tires are really beginning to wear out. Peter, one thing we didn't talk about, the track temperature coming in was right around 95 degrees or so. It's up to 102 degrees right now. So the track temperature, Ty Hester going around, perhaps. We stay, girl. There's
he hit the wall.
It's funny because just a lap prior, I saw that number 36 machine. I saw him completely skewed out And I was like, oh man, that's not looking too good. Well, right here coming out of turn number 4, same corner, just got too much skewed out, too much power down, and too much beans, as Mr. Producer Carlos Acosta likes to say. And unfortunately, he went for a 360, a lot of damage to that car. Also collecting the 0-2 machine, that's driven by Sam Crow. But we're now under our second caution here tonight.
So that was a tough break there for Ty Hester. And here you see the 0-2 Sam Crow. And watch as 36 just breaks loose right there off corner number 4. Just nowhere for Crow to go. And Crow goes spinning down into the inside. He does a good job keeping it relatively wound together. Unfortunately for him, there was just nowhere for him to go before the 36 got there. And I'm not surprised at all to see virtually the entire field on pit road here, Peter.
Yeah, working lap number 63 of the 200. We'll have to see if some drivers decide to stay out. Some have. Brandon Stokes, Grant Brown, Jordan Harnish, Mitch Brown, Jimmy McKee, all are still on the racetrack. Meanwhile, the rest of the field all coming down to get 4 fresh Goodyear tires. And it looks like the race off pit road will be won by, who was that? Was that Mr. 50 Machine? I believe it was Christopher Bouchard. So we'll have to wait and see how this all shakes out. But pretty interesting happenings here at Richmond Raceway. But we are now under our second caution flag of the night. And of course, it is round 3 of the SERVPRO Wheelman Showdown. So why don't we play a SERVPRO commercial? We'll be right back here on 3 White TV.
Life happens everywhere. Like it never even happened, only happens here. The cleanup and restoration specialists at 1-800-SERVPRO and SERVPRO.com.
The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real-world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $100,000 in annual prizes. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
All right, everyone, welcome back to Richmond Raceway, and we are under our second caution of the night, working lap number 65, so 64 laps are in the rear, and it looks like Jordan Harnish in the number 32 machine. Looks like he's one of the drivers who stayed out with Grant Brown in the number 52. That'll be your front row for this restart, and I'll tell you what, interesting strategies for some of these drivers out there, Greg. Some of these drivers saying, all right, I'm just going to stay out here. I'm going to save a set of tires. Remember, there is a tire limit here in the American Sim Racing Series, Hacksaw PC's Premier Series. What are your thoughts?
I'm thinking that these drivers who stayed out are trying to make it a one-stop race and save that for if there's a green-white checkers, the green flag falls. Grant Brown doing a great job there on the initial restart, getting away from the field. But I'm thinking that these guys who started up front, didn't pit, they're trying to make it a one-stop strategy and have that extra set of tires in the bank for a late caution.
It's going to be interesting to see who of these drivers makes it to the front first. We're 3 wide going off into turn number 3, 4 wide coming out of turn number 4. My goodness, drivers trying to get to the front as fast as possible. Looks like Craig Stykes in the number 57 machine. He's wheeling his way through traffic. Remember, he's the first driver now on 4 fresh Goodyear Eagles. He's right behind Jordan Harnish. He's not gonna make much work of him. He's closed in on your race leader, the driver of the number 52, Grant Brown. Wow, 4 fresh Goodyear Eagles here doing the talking.
Yeah, you're seeing it right here, clear as day. This is what 4 fresh tires as opposed to 70 lap old tires is doing. As Craig Stykes making easy work out of the field. Going into turn number 3, he's got his car over Will Worsler right behind him. Move Craig Stykes to the lead. Will Worsler second. Greg Evans back up to third. Remember, Evans has been right on Worsler's bumper pretty much this entire race. So now, Will Worsler Racing running 1-2 right now before Greg Evans and the early race leader, Chris Bouchard, up into the 4th spot. So new faces up front after that one.
Yeah, we do have Ronnie Smith in the chat saying, let's go, number 83. Of course, that is Greg Evans. Evans going to move up into the 3rd spot as your race leader. Craig Stykes will put Ty Hester in the number 36 machine down a lap. Ty Hester struggling with all that damage accrued from that previous caution. You see him right there. But we're looking back out the back bumper of Will Worsler's number 29 Slice Porcupine's machine. And Greg Evans is going to try the high side here in turn number 1.
All right, caution is out.
Caution is out. It looks like the number 95 machine, Danny Rogers, and I believe that's Jonathan Holstein there in the number 73 modified. Missing a front hood. We'll see what happened here. It looks like the number 73. Ooh, look at the 72 get all up out of shape. And oh yeah, something else happened in front. We'll have to see if we can get that from another angle. But it looks like Danny Rogers in the 95 was already stopped. A lot of damage to the iRacing.com Toyota Camry of Danny Rogers. Of course, hey, let's see what happened here. The number 41 machine and the 95. And there you see kind of the back end of it. The 95 machine spinning around. So tough break for Danny. Looks like Tim Knott just kind of dove it in, made a little bit of contact with Danny Rogers. Turned that number 95 machine around, and it was kind of a snowball from there. Maybe a little bit of net code. Jason Stewart in the 1 machine getting a piece of it as well in the checkered flag PC Toyota Camry. Also got Kirkwood Transportation on the hood. So tough break there for Danny Rogers, Greg.
That's a heartbreaker for Danny Rogers to get caught up. And that's a tough situation for anybody who's in that kind of situation, Peter. To have netcode happen is just so unfortunate. It's just unfortunately a product of racing on the iRacing server, as not just goes in, and unfortunately it just bottlenecks the field as the 95 goes spinning. Nowhere for the 1 to go or the 95 of Rogers.
You know what? I want to see, we might not be able to go back and get another replay, but I'm wondering if there was a little bit of hesitation out of some of these drivers, because Adam Jersky in the number 71 machine and the 6 of Jared Haggerty actually made contact about 7 or 8 vehicles ahead of where that accident took place. And I'm just kind of wondering if maybe Rogers saw that and kind of backed out of it, which allowed the 41 of Knott to dive in a little bit sooner and a little bit earlier than he would have, which might have contributed to that collision. So Jersky in the 71 was able to save it. I don't think he was all too happy with the number 6 of Haggerty, but Jersky going to continue on here in the 13th position, just outside of the top 10.
We'll see how this unfolds throughout the course of the race. We do have one more driver who has retired from the race. That is Alex Giese in the 77. He has just pulled it behind the wall, so his day comes to an end in the 77. And we noted early on in the race that he had damage. Before the first caution even came out, he already had damage. So it was a rough day at the office from the get-go for Giese. So he's going to cut his losses and call it a day here in the 77 as the field continues to pace under caution. Craig Stykes leading the way, Will Worsler in second, Greg Evans third, Chris Bouchard, who led a huge chunk of the opening race up until that previous restart, riding in fourth. And how about Jackson von Volkenberg, been slowly creeping his way up through the field, fastest car on the track at times. He started 13th. He just cracked the top 5 right before that caution came out. He's in the 5th spot.
Yeah, great to see a couple of drivers working their way up through the field, especially the number 23 machine of Van Valkenburg getting up into the top 5. I'm kind of surprised here, Greg. You know, we had a lot of drivers who stayed out, and those drivers, of course, started sliding back through the field, where a lot of those drivers, they did come down pit road. And looking down my live timing and scoring, every driver in the field has now made at least one pit stop. So all these drivers now they're honestly going to be really close here on possibly making it to the end from this point here, Greg. It's about 124 laps to go. I'm thinking about 120 laps worth of fuel. Do you think they can make it from here? I think it's going to be tight.
I think you're going to need at least 2 more cautions to feel a little bit more comfortable with this one. As the green flag falls, Stikes with a great jump, and look at Evans getting right to the inside of Will Worsler. Evans looks like he might have the second spot going into turn number 1.
Yeah, great start from the number 83 machine, winner of the first 2 rounds of the SERVPRO Wheelman Showdown. Make sure if you have anything that comes your way that you need to clean up, SERVPRO is your solution, because they are, of course, are the sponsor of the SERVPRO Wheelman Showdown, and Greg Evans has proven he is a wheelman in the first 2 rounds, trying to do so again here tonight. Craig Stikes, though, is your race leader. Looking back in the pack, you saw a brief moment of just chaos back there, side by side by side by side, all the way back through the field for about 7th spot on back. Jackson Van Valkenburg in 7th, as we saw James Lorello in the number 3 machine get a little bit out of shape. Maybe a little bit of a nudge there to the number 9 machine. That is Brandon Stokes. Stokes around the outside, and ooh, Stokes cutting down in front of the number 6 machine of Haggerty. And I'll tell you what, Greg, things are starting to heat up here. These drivers on these restarts are trying to get all they can get.
Yeah, you're starting to see drivers take more and more risks on the restarts because we are closing in on halfway, so track position becoming more and more important with every passing lap. You're starting to see guys try to get themselves in position for that final charge. These are the guys who might be thinking, hey, I need to make one more stop. They're trying to get themselves in position for that pit stop, as I still am not 100% sold that you can make it all the way to the end the way this race is going right now. I think you're going to need at least 1, maybe 2 more cautions before I would feel like you can make it the rest of the way if we save.
It'll be interesting to see if it does go caution-free, if one of these drivers can stretch it out. Looking inside your top 5 right now, Christopher Bouchard just caught the apron a little bit. Well, folks, what about the number 18 machine, Doug Mullins, getting now into the top 5 in the Sly Porcupines machine? So we have 3 of the Will Worsler racing machines in the top 5. I'm sure Nikki Worsler in the chat will be ecstatic to hear that. 1st, 3rd, and 5th ranked now, but right behind Doug Mullins is Jackson Van Valkenburg. He actually slid back to 7th. He's gotten back into the 6th spot, excuse me. So Van Valkenburg starting to make some noise here. He's been very, very quick here in the early going. Van Valkenburg started in 13th, now plus 7 spots from where he started. Still plenty of race for him to mount a charge into the top 5. Well, as I say that, here comes John Jenkins trying to take that 6th spot away from him.
John Jenkins able to clear Van Valkenburg and bring Alan Young with him in the 24. Cody Spiker behind him in the 19. And John Jenkins, he's having a quiet race, but he has been floating right around the top 5 pretty much the entirety of this race here at Richmond. He started 7th, and that's kind of been exactly where he's been camping through the entirety of this race in the early going. So Jenkins just hanging out, not really pushing the envelope a whole lot, and really trying to pick his moment to make his moves, and that could be the smart way to do things here at Richmond, especially with how crazy races at Richmond tend to get in the second half. Jenkins might be kind of just hanging back, not showing his full hand just yet, and waiting to get a run up in the second half.
Just biding his time. I'm not all too surprised there. Got to give a shout out to driver of the number 04 machine as we watched this side-by-side battle inside the top 10. Mark Myers making his 2nd start of the season. Made his 1st start back at Bristol Motor Speedway just a couple weeks ago on April 7th. So great to see the 04 machine in the field here tonight. And we have another caution here. Looks like turn number, whoa, no, Jackson Van Valkenburg in the number 23 machine. Commentator's curse right there. It looks like the number 65 machine, Travis McDaniel, turned around in turn number 1 as well. Let's see what happened here. Oh, Looks like the 23 and the 65. Maybe the 23 came down on the 65. I don't know. Would like to see that from the helicopter cam, but the 23 and the 65, both of them receiving heavy damage here, both up inside the top 10.
Troy Haight caught a piece of that as well in the 28. Here we'll see another look, trying to tuck in behind Spiker, and yeah, just came down a little too much. The 65 was already in there, and Troy Haight tries to dodge it and just catches the front of the 23 of Van Vogelberg. Boy, Brandon Stokes does a great job there to dodge it. Oh, Jared Lorello getting a piece of it as well. Grant Brown squeezing through. So a couple of drivers getting lucky that they got through there, but unfortunately, other drivers not so lucky. As here we go on board with the 65. Let's see what happens here, Peter.
Yep, not much he could do. Looks like just Van Valkenburg might have come down the racetrack, thought he was clear, and wasn't there. Very difficult to judge with the long curve into turn number 1. It's so difficult to see where the car is behind you, and unfortunately those cars making contact. Great job though by the number 71 machine. Gotta give a shout out to Adam Jersky for scooting by that accident. It doesn't look like he got any damage in the Beef Jersky's Cheesecakes machine. Maybe a little bit of right front damage, but it could have been a whole lot worse. He did all he could, and that Beef Jersky's Cheesecakes number 71 now in the 9th spot. Oof, boy, give that man a new pair of underwear. That was close.
Yeah, he's definitely going to want maybe a new paint scheme on the seat as well, as I think there's a new brown color there in the driver's seat of the 71. And Peter, he got lucky.
That he did. In fact, let's see if we can dial up one of the drivers who got a piece of that accident, driver of the number 3 machine, James Lorello. James Lorello, Peter Short in the 3Y TV booth. Got a piece of that accident. Hopefully doesn't affect your car all too much. How's it driving out there under caution?
Right now it seems okay. I'm going to take a chance and hope that it didn't hurt my power. It doesn't feel like it, but we'll see here when we get to green.
Well, how's that number 3 machine driving for you? We've had a long green flag run. Now a couple of cautions back-to-back. Cautions breed cautions. What's your mindset for the rest of this race?
I'm really trying to survive on points here. I don't think I'm fast enough to run in the top 5, but was hoping for a little top 10. So see if I can survive this thing, and I think there'll be a couple more cautions here before it's all over.
All right, well, James, best of luck. Good run so far, just outside the top 10. Hopefully you can break into it here as this race continues on. But maybe we'll get to talk to you after this is all said and done.
Thanks, guys.
All right, well, that was driver of the number 3 machine, James Lorello. Not too much damage on that race car, but definitely got a pretty decent chunk of that accident. We'll have to wait and see how it all pans out for Lorello. The bad news, from one thing I've been noticing, Greg, is damage has really been affecting cars here tonight. A couple of the cars who didn't appear like they had all too much damage, like Alex Giese in the 77 machine, like Ed Bray. Those cars are now many laps down, or they've left the racetrack. So I don't exactly know what it is. Maybe it's a new damage model or something like that. But definitely a lot of these cars with damage having big troubles tonight.
And that's making me worried about the 50 of Bouchard, because we noted that he got some damage trying to get through some lap traffic. It hasn't slowed him down much as he's riding in the 4th position, but he is still having that damage on the front. That's got me a little bit worried about that 50 car moving.
Well, green flag is back in the air. Craig Stykes, and see ya later, guys, because he got himself up to about a 3 or 4 car length advantage off into turn number 1 in that number 57 machine. Side by side, though, for second. Here comes Will Worser trying to get underneath the 83 of Greg Evans. They're still side by side for the 2nd spot. Evans trying to use that high line. Worser on the inside in the Slice Porcupines machine.
Worser trying to get the run and get that spot back, as he was in 3rd on that restart. And that's just the product. We've seen it time and time again. Ooh, a bobble from the 18 behind him. And Evans at the same time checks up. So great job by everybody there to settle down. And the 18 of Doug Nolan suddenly right on the back bumper. of Greg Evans with Bouchard behind him. So things beginning to settle down now. Craig Stykes is driven off, but things are getting slicey and dicey back here, second on back.
Yeah, Greg Evans had that huge slide coming out of turn number 2, and he has gathered it up now, trying to get to the back bumper of Will Warsler. I tell you what, you could not put a piece of paper between those two race cars right now, because here comes Greg Evans in the number 83 machine trying to get underneath Will Warsler. Couldn't quite do it, but I'll tell you what, they were just so close into turn number 1.
Evans still not going away. About a half a car length between them right now as they roll through the tri-oval. Evans kind of just backing off and letting Warsler run his line so Evans can gauge how to get around him. And we saw this out of Evans earlier. He was kind of backing off, letting Warsler do what he was going to do so Evans can judge and see where he's better. We saw that he seemed to like turn 3 a little bit more than turn 1 as it came to making a pass on Warsler. We'll see if he uses that same strategy here this time around, as we are at the halfway mark, lap 100, currently being worked right now.
Yep, here comes Cody Spiker underneath the 6 of Haggerty. Oh, a little bit of contact there coming out of turn number 2. Looks like the 6 maybe broke a little bit loose, got into the side of that number 19. I'm going to give him a little bit of a Goodyear tire donut on the right side of that machine. And oh boy, the number 6 machine kind of all over the racetrack right now, right in front of Shane Parrish in the SERVPRO Ford. What about Shane Parrish? I haven't really mentioned his name since the start of the race, but Parrish started way back in the field, and now he's gotten himself well inside the top 20 into the 15th position. We ride on board with him right here, going off into turn number 1, right behind Haggerty's Cheerwine Toyota, right in front of the 51 machine of Mitch Brown as well. And remember, Mitch Brown was one of those drivers on a slightly different... Contact between the 81 and the 51. They're still banging doors, and they saved it. Wow, what a save. Give props to the 81 machine of Shane Parrish, because you aren't going to see all too many saves here in the iRacing service that are as good as this one. Checked up there, and look at that, sideways beating and banging, and just able to gather it up. That was some good heads-up driving by the number 81. He only lost 2 spots out of that from 15th. I corrected myself. Lost 4 spots out of that, but it could have been a whole lot worse for that number 81 machine, as he's now back to 19th spot.
Yeah, but I'm watching the 51 of Mitch Brown. He has a lot of damage near the right front, right around the tire of that 51 car. So that did affect quite a bit on the 51, and he's one of the stronger cars in the field, and that damage runs all the way almost to the back of the car. So that's going to have a lot of concerned members of that 51 crew down there for the next few laps, as he currently rides behind Jared Haggerty. He is able to get up there. Haggerty also has quite a bit of damage, because Haggerty smacked the wall right before that happened, about 2 or 3 laps before that. Now Mitch Brown reeling him in, but a lot of damage on the 51 as well. We'll see how Brown is able to recover from this. But if I'm the 51 team, I'm worried. As he makes the move on Haggerty, Haggerty just going to let him go. So Brown's still going to try to go as hard as he can and gain one more spot, but that 51 car is definitely got some damage to it.
Absolutely. Back up at the front, battle for second is still red hot. Greg Evans trying to find a way around the number 29 machine of Will Warsler. He has been so close for about the last 5 laps, and just can't seem to find a way around. You see Greg Evans running a little bit higher entry into turn number 1, but look, he cuts down, uses a little bit of that momentum to get a good run coming out of turn number 2, and that number 83 machine is very quick. The bad news for Greg Evans, though, is he's starting to see the number 57 machine of Craig Stykes disappear off into the distance. Stykes now up to a 1.35 second race lead.
Well, I'm not so sure Will Warsler would be entirely heartbroken with that circumstance. Yes, he wants to win the race himself, but knowing that he's got the 57 car in his stable, that's got to make him feel good, knowing that he's currently working on 1, 2, 4 right now with Doug Mullins back there in the 4th spot. Feeling the heat, though, from Chris Bouchard, the early leader. Bouchard actually getting a good run through 1 and 2 this time, and got almost to the door of Doug Mullins, but Mullins used a really good exit on the outside to pull back away from Bouchard. Some damage to the back, though, of the 18 of Doug Mullins as well. The damage to the front of Bouchard, those are not from the same incident as the 18 of Mullins and the 50 of Bouchard. Both had that damage before they got into this position, but them going to battle is allowing Worsler and Evans to pull away even further from them, and has allowed Alan Young, John Jenkins, and the cast behind them to catch back up to him. So pretty soon we're going to have a very heated battle for the 4th position before too long.
Yeah, and here comes Bouchard to the inside of Mullins. Got a good run. Whoa, got a little bit of counter steer coming out of turn number 2 on that number 50 machine. You're starting to see those rear tires start to get away from some of these drivers, but looks like Bouchard is going to make that to do so. So Bouchard now in 4th. Race leader, your pole sitter in the number 50 machine. Can he run down the time and the number 3 in front of him right now? Eight seconds. Bouchard actually closed in just a little bit that last lap. So it'll be interesting to see how that great run for this number 24 machine of Young so far in this race in the 6th position. Really had a lot of speed in practice.
Yeah, it's a great run from Alan Young, and remember, he surprised quite a few people in that All-Star Showdown by creeping up there and finishing up in the top 5. I believe he was actually on the podium for that race, so he built quite a bit of momentum. To move into the top 5. He had it at the line by just 2 1,000ths of a second. The distance between them at the line that time, he will clear him off of turn number 2, bringing John Jenkins with him. But look how much Chris Bouchard has already been able to pull away from that group behind him, as Bouchard has the clean air a little bit in front of him, but it won't last very long because
Sharp, Brian Yazik, and Michael Krobach. And then the 4th fastest car, your race leader, Craig Stykes, in the number 57 machine. So you're starting to see Bouchard and Stykes, your top 2 at the start of the race, start to move a little bit forward. It looks like really Stykes and Bouchard checked out from the field early on, and they're definitely the fastest 2 as of right now. But why don't we go through the field, Greg, and why don't you start with your race leader driver of the number 57 machine?
Yeah, Craig Stykes has done a great job using patience. Started in the 4th position. We saw him working his way slowly through the field to try to get up there to the lead. Picked his moment perfectly on the restart, and since then really has checked out. Remember, he was able to get to the lead by using those fresh tires to the advantage when about 5 or 6 cars stayed out, and he was able to get a run up on through the field and was able to get the lead from them. Since then is really has not been the same for him, because he has been fending off Greg Evans behind him for quite some time now. It seems like the last 30-40 laps has been Will Worsler trying to defend. Doing a great job. Evans, of course, started outside the top 5, currently up in the 3rd position, whereas Will Worsler started 3rd, running 2nd. So has stayed up in the top 3 all day, but Evans rounding out the top 3, Peter. He has really been doing a good job with Chris Bouchard slowly beginning to reel him in behind him.
Yeah, Bouchard now 2.9 seconds off the race lead. Do want to say we apologize for a little bit of connection issues. Hopefully that all clears up. Looks like it has cleared up a little bit for now, and hopefully that continues since here, the 1 hour into tonight's race. It is a 200-lap event, of course, now well past the halfway mark, and we've been green flag now for quite some time, which is awesome to see. Craig Stykes got a 1.5 second lead over Will Worsler. Greg Evans 1.678 seconds back, and then you got Bouchard, Alan Young right there in the number 24 machine as we kind of pick up where we left off. That number 24 machine, great run so far. He's not really closing in on Bouchard, but he's not really losing any time on Bouchard. In fact, he's closing in on Craig Sykes just a little bit. So all in all, great run out of this number 24 machine here tonight. Right behind him is the number 7 machine of John Jenkins. He is about a second behind Alan Young, but he is the points that are coming into tonight doing battle with the number 32 of Jordan Harnish. In fact, Harnish is going to take that spot from Jenkins. So move Harnish, your outside pole sitter here tonight, up into the 6th position once again. Good run by him.
Sorry, Peter. Jordan Harnish getting back up there after being shuffled back early on, trying to fend off John Jenkins right now. How about the car in 8th behind him, picking back up here on through the field? Kelsey Rogers started 32nd position. Did not qualify. Here we are working lap 128. Kelsey Rogers has slowly made his way through the field up into the top 10 now. We have not mentioned him a whole lot except for dodging a couple incidents here and there. An outstanding run for the 34 car here tonight. Started 32nd, now up in the 8th position, putting pressure on for 7th.
Yeah, great run out of the Kelsey Rogers. And here's Brandon Stokes and Brian Yazik, 9th and 10th. And I highlighted the fact that Brian Yazik was one of the fastest cars on the racetrack. Well, he still is, folks. That number 55 machine, he pitted 38 laps ago. He's made 2 pit stops here tonight. And the number 55 HPPSimulations.com machine now up into the 9th position after that pass on Brandon Stokes. So we'll see what Brian Yazik can do. He's 5 seconds behind the race leader, but he's averaging about half a tenth faster per lap. Now he's got a little bit of clean air in front of him. I think he will close in on Kelsey Rogers, so we'll have to see what Yazik can do as these laps wind down. In the 11th position is the number 18 machine of Doug Mullins, now sliding outside of the top 10. You see a little bit of rear end damage to the Slice Porcupines machine, but he was solidly inside the top 5 earlier. But after a couple of restarts, getting shuffled back in this long green flag run, losing a couple of spots, a big slide right in front of him. Stokes really sliding it off into turn number 3 and 4, kind of dirt tracking it through turn number 3. And I think Mullins is going to close in on that spot. Back behind him, you find the number 51 of Mitch Brown there, Greg.
Mitch Brown, and we talked about, we were worried, or I was at least, with the damage on the 51 of Mitch Brown from that incident earlier with the 81 of Shane Parrish. Doesn't seem to really be affecting him so far as he has slowly worked his way up into the 12th position. The All-Star Showdown winner slowly making his way back up. Started 10th, but just hasn't really gone his way here tonight the way that you would expect a 51 Mitch Brown race to go, Peter, as he's really struggled and been outside the top 10 for most of the race. Hasn't really even gotten up towards the lead yet today, so all in all, you would almost call this night a disappointment for Mitch Brown, but all things considered, if he can continue his upward trend, he might be still pretty happy if he can get up into the top 10 before this is all over.
I'll tell you what, that number 51 machine in adversity, he does different things. He will try his best through pit strategy to get up to the front, and so I wouldn't be at all surprised if Mitch Brown tries something a little bit different if we get a couple of cautions here in the closing laps. Right behind him, though, in 13th spot is the number 99 machine of Clarence Bonner. You see him right there. Kind of a clean night out of Bonner, who had a couple of slides earlier, but he's kind of gathered those back up now to be just outside the top 10 in 13th. Right behind him is the number 71 machine of Adam Jersky and Jared Haggerty. They're side by side for the 14th spot. Looks like Haggerty going to take that from Jersky. The number 6 machine, there you go, the Cheerwine. You're seeing a lot out of Jared Haggerty, having a couple slides around the racetrack himself, and he's gathered that back up now. Gonna see if he can close in on the 99 in front of him. But Jersky and the Beef Jersky machine, remember he made that fantastic crash avoidance about 50 laps ago or so now, and trying to get himself up towards the front. Got a little bit of damage from that collision, but he's right where he qualified in the 15th position, excuse me. And behind him, we find the number 72 of Michael Krobach in the 16th spot. He is plus 8 positions. And kind of rounding out your top 20 for you, John Broussard, Cody Spiker, Tyler Seville, and Shane Parrish. But folks, things are starting to close up at the front.
Yeah, Will Worcester took a stab at the lead going into turn number 3, washed up the track, and came across the nose of the 83 of Greg Evans going into turn number 3 that time, about a lap ago. And now you see Evans able to get up there. Boy, Craig Stykes, it's almost like he hit it. Whoa, around goes the 29 of Worcester off the bumper of Bouchard. Oh no, caution is out.
And that is not what that number 29 machine wanted, for sure. Will Worcester got a lot of rear end damage. Let's see this one here on the 3-wide TV replay. Coming through turn number 3 and 4. Tried to slot in behind Greg Evans. And unfortunately, the number 50 machine was also trying to take that spot as well. Good news for Will, though, is he got some rear end damage, but he did not clobber the inside wall. He almost clobbered the inside wall. But Worcester's still going to be up near the front of the field. Didn't lose too many spots out of this. He's still going to have pretty good track position. There you see that little nudge. And a fantastic job by Will Worcester to get this thing locked down. You see those front tires locked up. He got those front tires rolling just to get it to grip. And avoided those different sized pylons there at the end of the pit wall opening. Usually filled with sand or water or whatnot, but he's only going to slide back to around the 10th spot here. So that's the good news for your Will Worcester fans in the chat. The bad news is he does have some rear end damage. I don't think he's going to get that fixed on pit road. We actually have had a couple more retirements here, including Danny Rogers, Travis McDaniel, Jackson Van Valkenburg, and it looks like your pole sitter Christopher Bouchard is going to claim that caution, so he will receive an end of longest line penalty, and that will take the pole sitter all the way back to the back of the lead lap.
And Greg Evans won the race off pit road over Craig Stykes. Brian Yazik stayed out, so we'll see. And yes, he is staying out, so he's still out there. Looks like he's committed to that one-stop strategy, but the 83 of Greg Evans, and actually several drivers stayed out as well, but Greg Evans will be the first driver on 4 fresh tires in the field, as another driver has retired from the race, James Lorello. And we talked about it. He was worried that damage was going to affect the straightaway speed. Sounds like it has affected him to the point that he's just going to cut his losses and call it a day. But Peter, 7 drivers stayed out on this caution. So we'll see what happens here on this next restart.
It will be interesting to see. We'll step away for just a brief moment with a quick word from a sponsor, and we'll be right back here on 3-Wide TV.
Every day in business starts with a number. Output, productivity, efficiency, all measured in numbers, because data drives decisions. And if fire or water damage strikes, the numbers for your business can slow or even stop. Unless you know this one. 1-800-SERVPRO, the #1 choice in commercial cleanup and restoration.
The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $100,000 in annual prizes. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
All right, folks, welcome back to 3-Wide TV here at Richmond Raceway. It is round 3 of the SERVPRO Wheelman Showdown. Looks like we've had a couple of things happen here under caution. Shane Parrish from the number 81 SERVPRO machine actually has been shown a black flag. Not quite sure if that's for connection issues or not, but unfortunately he will have to start rear end of the field. In fact, he's sitting on pit road, I do believe. Not quite sure why. Again, looks like the field back to green flag as they're going to put the number 81 machine a lap down, but Brian Yazik jumped out. We did have a couple of cars stay out here. The top 5 currently all stayed out. And it is Brian Yazik in the number 55 machine, wheeling it up at the front right now in the 55 HPPsimulation.com machine. Doug Mullins sitting in second, Mitch Brown in third. Clarence Bonner rear are under caution here at the Richmond Raceway once again. Oh man, it's the outside pole sitter, Jordan Harnish in the 32 Kirkwood Dispatch Services machine who's gone around. Let's see what happened here, Greg.
Taking a look at the replay. Oh, contact with Rogers. John Jenkins getting a piece of that. Wow. Harnish just shot up into the wall after the contact with Kelsey Rogers. Nowhere for John Jenkins to go. Boy, look at them fanned out. And I was kind of watching if this was a product of the restart. There you see the contact from Rogers, and yeah, nowhere for Jenkins to go.
Yeah, very tough break. And John Jenkins, of course, came into tonight the pole sitter, and that Dryden number 7 machine crinkled up pretty much on every single corner. Looks like the number 19 of Cody Spiker might have also gotten a piece of it with Grant Brown in the number 52 machine. But definitely a tough break. They were almost 4 wide there on the front straightaway. They were definitely 3 wide when that all happened. And definitely the 19 and the 11. The 11, of course, of Tyler Seville getting a good chunk of that. But boy, oh boy, we're back under caution. Good news for the number 55 machine up at the front. Brian Yazik, he's still going to be your race leader under this caution. I would dial him up if we could, but unfortunately he's not here in the server with us as of yet. I'm sure he will if he happens to finish in the top 3 after the race for a post-race interview. But Brian Yazik is your race leader. Doug Mullins sitting in second, though, in the number 18 machine. Let's see if we can possibly dial up that number 18 machine of Doug Mullins. Doug Mullins, Peter Short in 3Y TV booth. You got a copy?
Yeah, how you guys doing?
Doing pretty good. Well, you got that Slice Porcupines number 18 machine up into the second position right now. You decided not to come down pit road. What was going through your mindset, and will you be able to hold off these drivers on the fresher tires?
Well, I was a little bit, what do you want to call it? Angry that the first caution came out when it did. I thought that I was having a pretty good run and saving tires. Second set of tires, I kind of burned these ones a little bit early, and I think a lot of people did. So I'm kind of playing the long game here to be able to run 20 or so laps on these tires, and then if we get another caution later in the race, I'm hoping that I still have that last set for a strong run at the end.
Well, you've definitely shown a lot of pace here tonight. We got Nikki Wortzler in the chat rooting you on, saying, let's go, Doug. But of course, we got a long way to go. What's your mindset for the remainder of this race, and what's your mindset of coming to a short track like this in general?
Well, for the remainder of the race, you got to keep a clean car. That's the main thing. Now I'm in the point where I need to go hard to be able to keep somewhat of a pace with these guys. And coming to a short track like this, you don't want to make a mistake that ruins your race and everybody else's race. So that's really been the main focus.
Absolutely. Well, I will let you get back to it here, Doug, but best of luck here for the remainder of this race. Maybe we get to have another word with you after the race.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks, guys.
All right. Well, folks, that was the Will Worcester Racing Slice Porcupines machine of Doug Mullins. We'll get him back to where he needs to be with his Will Worcester Racing teammates. But I'll tell you what, Greg, it looks like we're going to have to go to a little bit of a radio-style broadcast here. So looks like we're still having a few connection issues, but it should be a pretty good race as Brian Yazik in the number 55 machine will lead us back to green here in just about half a lap.
The radio-style broadcast here coming up. Yazik bringing the field to the green. Boy, Doug Mullins in the 18 going way high up on the entry through 3 and 4 there, almost to the wall as the green flag falls. He tried to get a good jump, but Evans able to get to the inside. Evans and him almost door each other, not quite. Going down into turn number 1. Evans gets the spot. Here comes Craig Sykes with him to the inside of his teammate. Alan Young there behind him. Doug Mullins is going to get shuffled as the field fans out behind him.
The field is 2 and 3 wide back around the 10th position as we have a battle for the race lead. The number 83 of Greg Evans clipped the apron just a little bit, trying to get around Brian Yazik. Yazik's going to open up the door in turn number 1. Now number 83 of Greg Evans slides through to the race lead, and here comes Craig Stykes for second. Now Brian Yazik stuck on the outside. He's got the number 24 machine to his inside. Alan Young's going to move up into third. In the 5th position, Brandon Stokes has gotten up there. Now he's behind Yazik as Yazik has slid back to the 4th spot. Things starting to calm down a little bit further back. Doug Mullins, remember we just talked to him in the number 18 Slice Porcupines machine. Now he's sliding back to around the 10th position. Team owner Will Worcester sliding by. Worcester now up into the 6th spot as he gets around Yazik. The number 55 machine just falling back through the field like a stone as all these cars around him on 4 fresh Goodyear tires to his very old tires. To keep things into perspective, Yazik last pitted on about 64 laps ago. So that is quite a bit of laps ago, lap number 91 to be exact. So Yazik in that number 55 machine, he's trying to hold on for dear life. It looks like we finally got the stream back for you. There is your race leader, the number 83 machine of Greg Evans, getting by some of the slower lap traffic on older tires. But the number 83 now up at the front for the first time tonight in the short tap. Number 83 machine. And I'll tell you what, he's been very good all night inside the top 5. Didn't qualify inside the top 5, but Greg Evans definitely knows how to get things done here in the SERVPRO Wheelman Showdown, trying to go 3 for 3 in this championship within the Hacksaw PC's Premier Series. I'll tell you what, very, very quick, but he has a very quick cat right behind him in Craig Stykes.
Yeah, Greg Evans, remember, he was the one who was leading the charge of drivers on new tires on that restart, as he has been slowly but surely working his way through the field. How about Jared Haggerty, though? Currently, this number 6 car riding in the 6th position was up in the top 5 for a bit there after starting 38th position, using that strategy to stay out and try to gain some track position. So far, he's been the one that has been benefiting the most because he has been able to relatively hold pretty solidly still. And here we are closing in on 40 laps to go. And Jared Haggerty, he's up in the 6th spot, up in pretty good position right now. And remember, most of these drivers are trying to go the rest of the way without tires. Haggerty, I believe, still will have a set of tires. If he can catch a caution here sometime in the next few laps, Haggerty and the rest of the field that pitted or stayed out and did not pit might be in pretty good shape.
Yeah, and I think Doug Mullins kind of said it. He wanted about 20 laps and another caution. I think that will kind of give him the advantage. It will give him, of course, 20-lap fresher tires. Same thing that Brian Yazik is wanting as well. You see Yazik now sliding back to the 12th position. Here comes Adam Jersky for the 13th spot, assuming as Yazik now 13th, 14th, 15th. He's just sliding back. So they're going to want to caution here pretty quick because with 40 laps to go, laps are winding down. And you can see just how important fresh tires are for these race cars.
So Evans is pulling away little by little over Craig Stykes. Stykes led a good chunk of the middle portion of this race. We're not used to seeing it take Greg Evans this long to get up to the front, but boy, once he got to the front, it has been smooth sailing for that 83 car ever since then. Even Steven lap times there with Craig Stykes that time by, but Evans and Stykes, they've been two of the strongest cars so far today, as they have really put some distance between themselves and Alan Young.
Yeah, really, the top 3 have all been very strong today. Brandon Stokes in the number 9 machine, he's really starting to shine in that race car. He's been inside the top 10 for a good portion of the day, but this is the highest we've seen Brandon Stokes all day long with 37 laps to go. I'm sure he's pretty ecstatic to be well inside the top 5. Will Worth in the number 29 machine, remember, he's got some rear end damage from that contact a little bit ago, and he's doing a good job of kind of fending off that damage and putting together a good solid run. He's pulled away from the number 6 machine of Jared Haggerty by about 1.2 seconds. Haggerty sitting in 6th spot in the number 6 machine. What a day it's been for Haggerty. Kind of a roller coaster in that Cheerwine Toyota Camry. Most of the day just outside the top 10, now inside the top 10 solidly in 6th. And Grant Brown in the number 52, he's got quite a bit of rear end damage on the 52 machine, but great paint scheme by Yosemite Sam, the the Looney Tunes scheme, the kind of throwback for the number 52. He is now in 7th spot, but 5.38 seconds behind the race lead last time by 35 laps to go. And here in round 3 of the SERVPRO Wheelman Showdown, got to give a shout out to Fernando Matos in the chat. Unseelie Turtle still in the chat saying, all right, y'all, time for me to play husband and make dinner for the wife. Yeah, you go do that. I'll tell you what, you need some brownie points. We all do here in the shutdown. So we don't get the remote thrown at us all too many times. But I'll tell you what, 34 laps to go here around this 3/4 mile racetrack. Battle for the race lead right there. We saw it briefly. Greg Evans, 0.4 of a second up over Craig Stykes, but Stykes starting to make a little bit of inroads on the race lead.
Stykes is slowly reeling them in. It got down to 0.3 of a second at one point before Evans was able to open it back up to 0.4 of a second. Wow, they were separated by just 1/1000th of a second on the lap time chart that time by Jordan Harnish, the guy who started up near the front on the outside front row. It has officially retired from the race. That's a tough break for him after the incident up there in turn number 1 with Kelsey Rogers. But Peter, Stykes and Evans really running very, very similar lap times. That time, Stykes was able to cut quite a bit into Greg Evans' lead. Couple of hundredths there, almost a tenth was shaved off there that time. So Stykes seems to be a little bit quicker than Evans right now, but we'll see how this unfolds. There is lap traffic beginning to fill the windshield of Greg Evans also as they continue. That time, Evans was able to hit back ahead a little bit, but there is one lap traffic car ahead of him, the 73, as Evans goes to the inside, and it looks like the 73 is going to very wisely just move up and let the drivers go. Great job there by Jonathan Holstein to let the leaders go through as they were both able to get through there. Still pretty even, about 0.4 of a second between Evans and Stykes right now. They're pulling away from Alan Young. If this race stays green, it could come down to between the two of them if they can still go the distance. I'm not sure still just yet. It's been quite some time.
I'll tell you what, Jonathan Holstein, he's got no hood, he's got no front bumper, but he was still on the lead lap, and if a caution was to come out right now, he would be a lucky dog of that number 73 machine. So he's trying to do all he can to get the best spot here at the end of tonight's show. We have had quite a few retirements from this race, which is kind of surprising with how few cautions we've had, Greg. I mean, I know we've had, probably about 6 or 7, but we only have about 27 cars still running, so 13 cars have peeled off the racetrack. So a lot of retirements, which has been somewhat surprising. There you see the number 33 machine, Tony Schoen. He's in the 27th position right now. Edward Bray in the 66 running in the 28th spot. He's still out on the racetrack right now. But, it's a race of attrition. I said it at the beginning of the race. To finish first you must finish. And that's kind of a thing that you say whenever you go to a short track. But right now, cloud cover has come over this racetrack. We've seen quite a bit of cloud cover today. And you see that track temperature drop down to 90 degrees Fahrenheit. Remember, it was up about 105 degrees Fahrenheit earlier in the race, Greg. And this race now kind of pretty much predominantly under cloud cover. Keeping an eye on the current track state, it is saying it is now mostly cloudy. Earlier in the race, it was partly cloudy. So this goes back to what I was saying earlier in the race. One of my keys to the race is managing your brake balance. Well, now that the race is cloudy, you're going to have to play around with that brake bias. There's a little bit more grip out there. Are you going to put a little bit more rear brake bias in the car to help the car rotate into the corner? Now that there's a little bit more grip on the rear tires? I don't know. That's something these drivers are going to have to play around with and figure out, especially if you're up near the front, like the 83 and the 57 machine of Craig Stykes. And what about Alan Young, still running in the 3rd spot, trying to go get another podium here after a podium a couple weeks ago in the ASRS All-Star Invitational.
So that's going to be ultimately, talking about the brake bias again for just a second, that's ultimately going to be driver's discretion, and it's going to be how they feel comfortable with setting their car up for the end of the race. But Peter, I'm watching the 83 of Greg Evans, the race leader, and look what is right in front of him. A whole entire slew of lap traffic. This could be what determines the outcome of this race.
It could be, but I also want to mention who is in that gaggle of cars. The number 18, Doug Mullins. Remember, he was hoping for a caution because he still has a set of Goodyear tires in the hauler to put on that race car. He's about to go one lap down. Same thing with Michael Krobach. Brian Yazik is only a couple cars in front as well. In fact, Mullins here is going to go down a lap as Evans goes on by. So it looks like Mullins' strategy, boom, it's gone. It's destroyed, unfortunately. And you're starting to see that gap between Evans and Stikes is still about a half second. We'll have to keep an eye on that here with now just 20 laps to go here around Richmond Raceway.
I'm sure Doug Mullins wishes that he could take that water bottle that's sitting in his cup holder and throw it out the window right now to try to get a debris caution. Unfortunately, that's not a problem here on iRacing, as he has gone a lap down trying to get back up, but it doesn't look like it's going to work out as the leaders work their way through lap traffic. Greg Evans gets around 2, going after the third, this being Krobach. He will get him that time down the backstretch. Stikes, though, not going away either. He was able to catch Krobach in a good spot there. And remember, that goes back to what we talked about earlier. It all depends on where you catch lap traffic on the racetrack. And it looks like both of them were able to catch lap traffic in the perfect spot, and they were able to get through relatively unscathed, and the margin did not change any between them. So Craig Stikes was hoping that the lap traffic was going to help him reel in Greg Evans. Unfortunately, just as good as he was able to get through traffic, Evans was able to as well. So that didn't really help him out as much as he was hoping it would.
Getting reports that Jonathan Holstein in the number 73 machine has taken his car down pit road. There you see him getting 4 fresh tires on that car. Hopefully he can make it back out. Will Worsler in the 4th position. Looks like he's closing in on his teammate Doug Mullins to get around him. But there's quite a bit of a gap between 4th place Worsler and Alan Young right now, about 2 seconds. Worsler was able to get around Brandon Stokes. So Stokes now back in the 5th position. Haggerty still running in 6th. And what about that race for Jared Haggerty? I mentioned it just a couple laps ago, kind of a roller coaster of a race. He started back at 38th, plus 32 positions in this one. Great run for Jared Haggerty in 6th.
An outstanding run. I noticed it a little bit into this run that he had gone from 38th. At the time he was in 5th. He fell back to 6th, but an unbelievable effort by Jared Haggerty, using the strategy, and it seems like it worked out his way. Outstanding performance today by the 6th of Jared Haggerty. Unbelievable run for him. 38th to 6th. That's a good day in any driver's book. It doesn't matter who they are. 38th to 6th, you're going to be happy with a run like that.
Absolutely. There's the number 99 machine of Clarence Bonner right behind the number 51 machine of Mitch Brown. This is just inside the top 10. Mitch Brown running in 8th. Grant Brown in 7th, about a second or so in front of Mitch. And there is Christopher Bouchard. Remember, he had to take an end of longest line penalty after an accident not all too long ago. He's recovered to bounce back inside the top 10, but I'm sure he's going to be disappointed with how this race has gone. Really, I gotta say, for the Momentum Sim Racing drivers, Bouchard, the 65 of McDaniels, the number 7 of Jenkins, this race just hasn't quite gone to plan for them. I mean, they've been on an absolute tear here in the Hacksaw PC's Premier Series as of late. Definitely had a lot of momentum going into Bristol a couple weeks back. That momentum was kind of broken, and here tonight, not the best of nights, but we only have 10 more laps around Richmond.
10 laps to go. The margin staying the same, right around half a second. Actually, Greg Evans was able to increase it to 0.6 of a second last time by. So Evans is slowly beginning to pull away from Craig Stikes. I wonder if Stikes just used up a little bit too much through lap traffic there, trying to get up and keep pace with Greg Evans, and he might have just burned up a little bit too much. And this is allowing Greg Evans to pull away little by little every lap.
I'll tell you what is also allowing Greg Evans to close in on, and that is the all-time American Sim Racing Series win record, currently held by Jim Foose. Of course, Jim Foose is the league owner and organizer, and he is doing officiating duty here tonight at Richmond. But Greg Evans just closing in a little bit by little on that number held by Foose, and that number is over 100. I'm sure if Foose was in the booth with us here tonight, he would kind of be gloating over that one. But caution is out, like you said, and Michael Krobach in the 72 HPPSimulation.com machine unfortunately turned around there out of turn number 4. He was 1 lap down. There you see it. Let's see if we can go back just a little bit earlier. Ooh, maybe a little bit of help there from the 26 machine of Lee Staples. Let's see if we can go back maybe a little bit earlier. Here we go. And maybe the 26 washed up a little bit.
Yeah, it looked like either that or maybe Krobach was trying to maybe use a little bit of a side draft, something we see at bigger tracks. Not too often we see it here on a short track such as Richmond. So we'll have to see maybe if we can get another look from the blip cam, which we had there. Yeah, it looks like the 26 of Staples washed up just a little bit. Oh, wait, did you see the 72 kind of bouncing up off the ground a little bit there?
Yeah, good news for Krobach is not too much contact with the outside wall. Did kind of get a lick of it there at the end. The bad news is he's 1 lap down because of his pit strategy. He decided to save that set of Goodyear tires. Well, the bad news is the caution flag didn't come out in time for him, and in fact, he ended up being part of the caution, so he will be 1 lap down. Now, Brian Yazik in the 55 machine, I believe he will be the lucky dog. Now, here's the good news for all you Brian Yazik fans in the chat. He does still have a set of fresh tires. Bad news is he only has 5 laps to use them. In fact, probably less than 5 laps, because this might be a green-white checker. So Yazik, I'm sure he'll come down, get those 4 fresh Goodyear tires on the race car. If he gets lucky here, Greg, gets a couple of green-white checkers, we might be able to see Brian Yazik get his way up towards the front. Maybe. Not saying it's going to happen, but he needs a lot to happen to get up into the top 10. But 4 fresh tires will definitely be a godsend for him right now in that race car.
Well, no doubt he's going to be able to gain a lot of spots in those couple of laps because he's going to be able to slice and dice his way through the field. He might not be able to gain as many as he is hoping, as it looks like he's going to restart in the 18th position, provided he does pull into the pit road, which here he comes. Right now, he is coming in for those 4 Mr. Feelgoods. So we'll see how it all unfolds for the 55 of Yazik. He looks like he will restart in the 18th position. That'll be something to keep an eye on throughout the finality of these however many green-white checkers we get, whether it's 1, 2, 3, however many we get. Yazik will have to keep an eye on how many spots he is able to gain with these 4 fresh tires. So we'll see how it all unfolds for him at the end. But boy, Peter, this changed everything up front because Greg Evans looked like he was on cruise control for making it 3 for 3 in the SERVPRO challenge. But yeah, this changes everything, and now he's got a guy who's been pretty much dead even with him all day, Craig Stykes, right to his outside for this restart.
It is going to be a fantastic finish to this race. It will be an attempt at a green-white checker, I do believe, so this race will be extended. We'll see those pace car lights stay on here for possibly another lap. Hopefully we go green flag here in about a lap and a quarter's time. But I'm going to have to keep one of my eyes on the number 55 machine of Yazik. Just how high can he get up? He's going to restart in 18th. Remember, also end of longest line because he got the lucky dog. But question for the chat. Brian Yazik, fresh tires. All the other cars have 58 laps on their tires in front of him. He restarts in 18th. How high will Brian Yazik finish this race? Also have to remember there could be multiple green-white checkers. Let me know. We'll keep an eye on it. We'll see whether or not you are right here as this race comes to its conclusion. Excuse me. The pace car lights are off, Greg.
Here we go. First attempt at a green-white checkered. Greg Evans going to lead him to the green with Craig Stykes to his outside. Alan Young in third. We are green for the first attempt at a green-white.
Green flag back out, and the number 83 of Greg Evans got a fantastic start. A little bit of wheel spin a little bit further back. We're 3 wide going off in, 4 wide going. Oh, the 7 machine in the outside wall. The 02 spinning back down the racetrack. We stay green flag, no caution. They were able to get it sorted out. Big contact on the backstretch. The 04's going around. We're still green. The 99's going around. But
Caution came out, and it was
come out.
The caution came out before they crossed the line, Peter. We're going to have another attempt. That started the 6 of Haggerty, spun his tires on the restart. Remember, we talked about him having such a good run. Started in the 38th position. That dropped him outside of the top 10. He spun his tires on the initial start. They were 4 wide at one point in turn number 1. And unfortunate for Jared Haggerty, and it ultimately led to a chain reaction. Here we take a look at the 3-wide TV replay, which ultimately puts us under a green-white checkered about 100 feet short of the finish line before we took the white flag.
Of course, if they get back to the white flag and the white flag is displayed, they do finish the race. But let's see this replay right here. You can see, oh man, the 51 and the 6 and the 9 all coming together. And then look at this 4 wide in turn number 1. The 7 of Jenkins on the top side. He gets shoved up into the outside retaining wall. And then the 02 machine goes for a slide. And then there was further contact on the backstretch. So boy, oh boy, this was a crazy restart. And I'm not all surprised because this is Richmond after all. Let's see, the 9 and the 24, maybe they had it coming together, and the 9 pushed up, got the 6, and it was just crazy from there. There you go. There's the 4 wide action. Now let's go back a little bit further in the pack, back to Jonathan Holstein in the 73. Oh, well, there you go. There's the replay. But I think the 73 of Holstein might have been in the second incident that eventually brought out the caution. In fact, maybe even the 99 brought out the caution because there was that going on too. We'll have to see. There's the 4 wide action. Now let's see if we can jump up to the 99 of Bonner. Just ahead. Here's the 99 of Bonner. Ooh, man. So I think that's what brought out the caution. Went for a 360. Good job of only lightly tapping the wall, but that's going to be an interesting little thing for the admins to review. As there looked to be a little bit of an accordion effect, and maybe the 50 sending it in just a little bit. Remember, the 50 had already been involved in an accident earlier in the race, and Bonner just going for a little bit of a loop. That's not what Greg Evans wanted to see. He wanted to see the checkered flag, not the yellow. But we are back under the yellow flag here. The pace car lights are still on. We'll see if we can dial up someone for a quick word here on 3-wide TV. Let's see if we can talk to driver of the number 29 machine, one of the Will Worser Racing machines, because I know he'll be here in the chat. Let's see if we can grab him. Will Worser, Peter Shorten, 3-wide TV booth. Got a quick moment?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, you're currently up there in the 3rd position. You got a shot here at possibly getting a top 3. You're in the top 3 right now, but what do you think that the two in front of you might get together here in the 2nd attempt at green-white checker?
I really don't know, man. I've just now gotten back up here. I'm on pretty old tires. I used up a good bit getting back up here, and that's really the only shot I'm going to have at a win is for those two to get together. But they're both pretty good drivers, really good drivers, and I expect them to, keep their positions. I'm just going to try to do the same.
How difficult was it for you to get the power down under that last restart?
Not bad. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was.
All right.
I started in 2nd and just kind of babied it.
All right. We'll let you get back to it. Pace car lights are off. Good luck here in the 2nd attempt.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Well, pace car lights are off. We're halfway down the back stretch. We'll let Will Worser get back to it. But my pace truck lights are off. Greg? Green flag back in the air.
Ooh,
Craig Stykes, big wheel spin in the number 57 machine, and the 83 is gone. Worser going to slide up into 2nd. We're green flag here at Richmond.
3 wide, deep in the pack. Many cars there fanned out 3 wide down the backstretch for the final time. They're all trying to get back to line contact. Young in the wall. We got a big wreck behind them. Haggerty around. The field goes around. Tyler Seville, caution is out. John Jenkins, Alan Young. Wow.
My, oh my. And that just ruined a great race for the number 6 machine. The 24 machine, look at them all beating and banging, all getting sideways. Look at Kelsey Rogers sideways in the number 34 machine, getting into it with the number 11 machine. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Tyler Seville missing a rear end on the Slice Perky Pines machine. Just absolute craziness halfway down the backstretch. Lots of cars receiving quite a bit of damage. Jean Broussard in the number 53 machine, he made a good save in that car to amend himself after going completely sideways. But all of a sudden, the entire field has been shuffled. And we're going to go for the final attempt at a green-white checker here in just a little bit.
Peter, I wonder if we can get one more look after this, because keep your eye on a guy that we talked about before the green-white checkered started. Brian Yazik in the 55. He got through that. He is up to the 10th position on fresh tires. There you see him at the bottom right there, squeaking his way through. The 55 of Yazik made his way through that. There you see the initial start. Kelsey Rogers, Mitch Brown, Jared Haggerty involved. You see them spinning out. And here we go on board with Yazik. Watch him snake his way through here. On the bottom right there, squeaking up. Just slams on the brakes, gets through it all. No touch whatsoever. Brian Yazik is up in the top 10.
Yeah, great job for Brian Yazik. In fact, looking at how things are sorting through, looks like iRacing kind of adjusting the score, live timing and scoring. Brian Yazik actually now being scored in 14th spots. So it looks like they had to kind of sort things out. But yeah, he was up in the top 10 if you were to kind of let it all play out there as you would. But it looks like live timing and scoring cut it at a scoring loop. So he will be back in the 14th position. We got estimates in the chat. Rich Stokes saying 8th. Nikki Warsler saying 11th. Ronnie Smith saying 10th. Well, it was looking really good for you, Ronnie, back before iRacing bumped him back a couple of spots, but he does still have 2 more laps here to try and get to the checkered flag. Remember, if a caution flag does come out, that will be the race. This is the 3rd and final attempt at a green-white checker. If they make it to the last lap, if a white flag is displayed, the leader takes the white flag, there will be no further cautions, and they will race back to the checkered flag. So that's how things play out here in the iRacing service. But right now, the pace truck lights are still on. Definitely the biggest accident of the night here coming after the 2nd attempt at a green-white checker, but we will still have 2 more laps here in just a few laps coming up for you. But this is overtime here in the Hacksaw PC's Premier Series, round 3 of the SERVPRO Wheelman Showdown. And really one of the storylines coming into tonight was Greg Evans. He won the first 2 SERVPRO Wheelman Showdown races, and he's trying to go 3 for 3 tonight.
And he is in good position to do it. But Will Worsler to his outside, is going to give it all he's got on this final attempt at a green-white checker. Grant Brown, the 52. We mentioned him. Started 11th up to 3rd in the Looney Tunes throwback. Craig Stykes still in 4th. Remember, he's going to want to make his way back up there after he slid the tires on that last restart, which shuffled him back. Brandon Stokes quietly making his way back to the top 5. All kinds of different storylines here, Peter. 2 laps to settle it. Final green-white checker.
Greg Evans got a fantastic restart last time, as did the 29 of Will Worsler. Well, now the rolls, the 29 on the outside. Can he get a good restart this time? The 83 on the loud pedal, gonna clear the 29 of Worsler. Worsler gonna slide up into the 2nd position, gonna slot down in front of Grant Brown. Stykes up into the outside wall of the number 57 machine. That's not good. Oh, the 50 of Bouchard, and we're wrecking. Caution flag is out. That is the race, folks. Greg Evans will go to victory lane, and they're still wrecking on back. The 9 machinist Stokes is around. He's reversing on the racetrack. Now coming back on the 11 machine involved. They're still wrecking here at Richmond. This is absolute chaos. But that man right there will get to take it to victory lane. and I'm sure a lot of those drivers will be a little bit disappointed, but he will come around. The 83 of Greg Evans go 3 for 3 in the SERVPRO Wheelman Showdown, and wow, what a way to assert yourself in this championship within a championship. I can't believe that Greg Evans going 3 for 3.
Greg Evans going 3 for 3 on the night. And Brian Yazik got to 9th. He crosses the line in the 9th position. He made it back to the top 10.
Oh, so we got kind of a tie between Rich Stokes and Ronnie Smith, because Rich said 8th, Ronnie said 10th. So if we were playing by Price is Right rules, Rich, you win. You win the bonus because you didn't go over. So we'll give that to Rich Stokes in the chat. Unfortunately, Brandon Stokes going to come across the line, I believe, in the 18th position when this is all said and done. So not the night that Brandon was hoping for, especially with how he ran at the end. But that man right there on your screen, the 83. Now Greg Evans going to burn it down here on the front stretch. He's getting pretty darn good at it, because this is yet another trip to victory lane in Hacksaw PC's Premier Series. And they got sure tape on the hood this week. And awesome looking paint scheme, kind of a retro feel to that number 83, but it's kind of got that modern vibe. Greg got that neon orange that you see on a lot of late models. A really good looking ride there. And burning it down just makes it look that much better.
Yeah, you know he's got to love it. His first run with the new ride and put it in victory lane and get to do a nice burnout for the fans here at Richmond Raceway. A big win for Greg Evans, 3 for 3 in the SERVPRO Showdown. Unbelievable. How can you even write a story like this? You couldn't even write this in Hollywood. Greg Evans is just dominating this show within a show.
Absolutely. We'll let him celebrate a little bit more, but we're going to step away here on 3Y TV. We're going to line up some post-race interviews for you. Grant Brown, Will Worser, and Greg Evans finishing 3rd, 2nd, and 1st. We'll be talking with him here in just a brief moment here on 3Y TV.
Life happens everywhere. Like it never even happened, only happens here. The cleanup and restoration specialists at 1-800-SERVPRO and SERVPRO.com.
The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $100,000 in annual prizes. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Every day in business starts with a number. Output, productivity, efficiency, all measured in numbers, because data drives decisions. And if fire or water damage strikes, the numbers for your business can slow or even stop. Unless you know this one, 1-800-SERVPRO, the #1 choice in commercial cleanup and restoration.
All right, folks, welcome back to Richmond Raceway, where the sun is slowly setting. Let's see if we can focus this camera on your 3rd place finisher this week. There you see him right there in the number 52 machine. That is Grant Brown. And Grant Brown joining us in the booth. And Grant, you were here in the 3-wide. Oh, well, hold on. I guess we're going to go through the replay first from this post-race, or this last accident that we had before the post-race interview. So we'll hold off on that Grant Brown interview at least for now. But let's see what happened here. And it all started with, looks like Craig Stykes getting into the outside wall, maybe pushing a little bit too much into turn number 1 and 2. Then kind of was 3 wide with the number 50 machine. And the 50 almost cleared Stikes, but Stikes had that really good run around the outside and just a coming together, kind of a racing deal in the closing laps. And it was on from there, just really a melee all the way back. But I'll tell you what, the number 55, Brian Yazik, snaked his way through that one again. See this again, and Greg, just kind of that contact, that last-minute racing, really that racing deal. You're not going to give anyone any room at that point in the race.
No, you're really not. You're going to try to make your way through the field as quickly as you can to get in as many spots as possible. And just, you see the product of it, everybody just going for as many spots as they can. You have different drivers with different amounts of tire wear on their cars. So it's just a product of all the different strategies coming together at once and everyone trying to get as many spots as they could there at the end. And unfortunately, the result was a big wreck at the very end.
Here we go, on board with the number 66 of Edward Bray, and Ed was a little bit further back in the field, but you can see all this carnage happening in front of him. I'd be also really curious to see this accident from the 55 machine. Ooh, got a piece of it right there at the end. I'd love to see an onboard with Brian Yazik. Remember, he did a fantastic job to avoid the accident that brought out the last attempt at the green-white checker. On board with Yazik here. Car spinning in front of him, slows it down. The car is still spinning, goes high. Car is still spinning, and just kind of holds his line and lets it all hang out and gets on through. Now, he was scored in 5th spot when he got back to the start-finish line, but iRacing went back to the previous scoring loop, and he was finally scored with 9th. But what a story that would have been if he had come home with a top 5, Greg. Just a great job there by Brian Yazik.
That was an outstanding effort by Brian Yazik as we take one more look at it. Here you saw you sneaking through. This is on board with Brandon Stokes. Just a product of, like we mentioned, everybody on different strategies, all trying to get up to as high as they possibly could. Man, oh man, just pandemonium here at Richmond. There you see the pole sitter, Chris Bouchard, who led so much of the early stage. He was one of the drivers caught up in the start of that. Man, oh man, Peter, just a wild ending here at Richmond.
It definitely was a wild ending to what was a good race, here at Richmond. We had some long green flag runs, and there at the end, just a couple of cautions. And that's not the first time we've seen that this year. Action really picks up here in the closing laps of the American Sim Racing Series. Here on board with one of the Kirkwood transportation cars, not quite sure. This is the 41 of Tim Knott, I'm hearing, and almost getting into the back of the 04 machine right there at the end. The 04, of course, driven by Mark Myers, making his second start on the year. He comes home with a pretty solid 19th spot. But now, let's see if we can put our camera on the number 52 machine of Grant Brown. There he is, and let's watch this one more time here, this replay, because we're going to catch a word with him here in just a brief second. So we will be able to watch this replay and then talk to him going through the corner, and he looks like he just scooted on by it, and he was probably very glad to see all that happen in the rear, because he's going to come home with a top 3 finish. And let's see if we can dial him up right now. Grant Brown, Peter Short, 3-wide TV booth. You got a copy?
Yes, I do.
I'll tell you what, you had a really sweet looking ride tonight. Kind of got that throwback Looney Tunes scheme, like I believe that was similar to the number 24 that Jeff Gordon ran back here in the day. But man, you come out of this thing with a great finish. You were up there in the top 10 for a good portion of the night, coming home with a podium. Tell us a little bit about your night.
Pretty good. Just struggling to keep the right rear underneath it was the big task all night long, and got involved in a wreck about lap 80, 85 or so. Got just pushed into it and had to pit for repairs. So had to battle back all the way from 30th and pit for repairs for 3 or 4 cautions just to get it back together. But ended up working out well, and glad I can get a top 3 out of it.
Yeah, definitely putting that Patriot Media and Marketing Solutions number 52 up there near the top of the charts. You started in the 11th position, had good pace all night long. Like you said, able to battle back from that. How much did you play around with the brake bias tonight? Was it one of those things that really changed? The track temperature went all the way up to 105 degrees. And then towards the end of the race, it was down in the 80 degree temperature range. So a pretty big swing in track temperature. How did that affect the car?
It affected the car a lot, especially on entry. The car would really get upset as you drove in and try to slide the rear tires. But I just left the brake bias where it was at, honestly, and just adjusted my driving to suit the track conditions, and it ended up working out more than blowing off my right side tire.
Well, that is absolutely fantastic to hear that you're able to do that. You know, some drivers have a real hard time adjusting their driving style throughout a race and adjusting to what the track is doing, but definitely did that very well here tonight. But speaking of track conditions, you're not going to have to worry about it all too much next week because it's Talladega for round 4 of the SERVPRO Wheelman Showdown. Of course, kind of a roll of the dice at Talladega. What are your thoughts about going to the super speedway in a week's time?
It's really anybody's race. I mean, you know, guy that usually runs 35th at an intermediate track can come out and lead the pack. It's just got to have the mentality of survival over pushing your way to the front until about the last 10 laps to go, because with this draft package, you can really work your way up even on your own, as we've seen in some of the official races this week at Talladega. You can hold your own with 1 or 2 cars following you pretty well on the 3rd groove or 4th groove even in some cases, so looking forward to it.
Should be an absolute show next week. But before we let you go, you got any shout outs for us?
Well, obviously I own Patriot Media, so I guess I'll thank myself. Checkered Flag PCs and Jason Stewart, Todd Kirkwood with Simporium Race Ready Rigs, and Toyota Racing Development for coming on board for the Richmond and Darlington races with the Looney Tunes scheme ideas. They actually helped out a lot with it, so looking forward to Daytona next week.
Gotta say, I love that, giving yourself a little bit of a pat on the back. Great to hear that, of course. Also sponsoring Mitch Brown on the number 51 machine, Patriot Marketing, Media and Marketing Solutions. A little bit of a tongue twister there, but best of luck there, Grant. See you in a week's time at Talladega.
Thank you. Have a good night, you guys.
All right, well, that is the 3rd place finisher, the number 52 of Grant Brown. I do believe that Mr. Greg Rentz has caught up with driver of the number 29 machine, your 2nd place finisher here tonight, Mr. Will Worsler.
Yeah, Will Worsler, Greg Rentz, 3YTV, you got a cop?
Yes, sir. How you doing, Greg?
Doing well, and I'm assuming you're doing the same as well, as you just came home with a 2nd place finish after a very, very hard fought.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't exactly go as planned. I really didn't want to use what I had getting back to the top 3 there on my last set of tires, but it was a deal where it is what it is. And so I knew once I got back up there, I didn't feel like I had anything for Stykes or Greg. I hate the way that the green-white checkers came and went. Kind of ruins the end of a race, but I hate it for my teammates, man. Stykes had a good run, and he deserved better than where he finished. Same thing for Doug Mullins. He was fast as well. But, it's a fun race. It's a very difficult race. And Greg Evans, he did what he had to do to bring home the victory tonight.
And Will, we were noting it throughout the course of the race. You and Greg Evans were pretty much locked in a duel almost the entire day up until about the final 4th of the race there. You guys were locked in nose to tail, and it came down to you guys for that last shot at the green-white checkered. Tell us about what it's like racing with Greg Evans throughout the entirety of a race like that, because you guys put on a heck of a show all day long.
Yeah, Greg Evans is, he's, as far as this league is concerned, he's one of the top drivers, if not the top. I mean, he brings it every week, and, he's somebody that, for the most part, you can run side by side with, and you're not going to have any issues, other than getting raced hard. So that's really all you can ask for. He's pretty cold, he don't like an Iceman. He don't make many mistakes. So he's definitely fun to race with.
All right, well, will 2 of your cars come home with the top 5 with you in 2nd and Craig Stykes coming home in 4th? But Up next for you guys, you got the wild card Talladega, which is going to prove to be one heck of a show. How do you like going into the tracks such as the 2.66 mile super speedway down and out?
I'd be lying if I said I was looking forward to it. I hate the plate tracks. I ride around for the whole thing, just waiting to get caught up in something. So it's something where you just got to kind of go out there and let things play out, and then you get caught up in it or you don't. So it's one of these, it's one of those deals where you get any kind of body damage whatsoever, and it's most likely going to hurt you and destroy your chance to win. So I'm not looking forward to it, but I'm going to go out there and give it a shot.
All right, well, a second here today, and we know you have quite a few guys you want to give a big thank you to, so let's hear it. Who?
Yeah, well, I need to thank my wife because she watches my races every week and gives me support and plenty of criticism. I'm sure I'm going to get it here in a minute for not beating the 83 on the green white jacket restart. Got to thank my teammates, man. We push each other in practice and point out stuff for each other to whether it be lines or stuff, tire wear stuff to make each other better. So, Tyler Seville did a good practice today, kind of helped us out a little bit. Got to thank my sponsors, Sauce Pizza Bar, Perky Pints, Sam and Jim for putting on the league, and as always, 3 wide.
All right, that's second place, Will Borsler. Congratulations on the top 3 here.
Yeah, I appreciate it, guys.
All right, well, that was your second place finisher here tonight, Will Worsler in the number 29 machine. But now I get to go down to Victory Lane where I find the number 83 machine once again, 4th time this season in the Hacksaw PC's Premier Series. Greg Evans got sure tape on the hood here tonight. Great looking ride, getting that thing to Victory Lane. And I'll tell you what, 2 weeks ago, you didn't even know it was a SERVPRO Wheelman Showdown. I told you I wouldn't let you know if the next race was or not. Well, it was. You've now 3 for 3 in the SERVPRO Wheelman Showdown. My, oh my, tell us about your night, because once you got to the front, you did not look back.
Yeah, it was definitely a eventful night tonight. Didn't qualify where we wanted to qualify at, but I knew he had a really good race car. I knew he was good on the long run. I just tried to be patient for the first 150 laps, and just save our stuff, and just had some good pit stops, and everything kind of fell our way and got the lead with about 50 laps to go there, and was able to just hold off.
Well, you definitely put on a masterclass, some high-pressure restarts right there towards the end. We saw a little bit of wheel spin. We saw a couple of checkups further back in the pack. How difficult was it to get those rear tires hooked up, not only on that restart, but all night long? I mean, your rear tires is always a talking point when you come here to Richmond.
Man, I'm telling you, I think everybody in the race will testify that it was really sketchy out there most of the race. You'd feel good for about 2 or 3 laps, and then all of a sudden the car would just get real loose coming off the corner, or real loose getting in the corner. It was definitely a handful. I definitely didn't want to see that caution come out and the green-white checkers there at the end. But on the first restart, I spun my tires, and I kind of figured out something on that first restart. Was able to compensate for the second and third restart, and kind of get away from the field there, because I definitely didn't want nobody on my tail going into one.
Well, you definitely did a fantastic job of getting clear of whatever car was to your outside, timing those restarts at just right. And we saw that back at Bristol Motor Speedway 2 weeks ago here in the Hacksaw PC's Premier Series. But I'll tell you what, Victory Lane once again, and 3 wins in the first 3 rounds of the SERVPRO Wheelman Showdown. Of course, there is a prize at the end of that. It is a steering wheel. I know you kind of said you weren't focusing on that. You were focusing on big picture. You were focusing on kind of just going out there, having fun, trying to get the W. You've done it again. I won't tell you if the next week is a SERVPRO Wheelman Showdown, because I know you're not really interested in that. But how cool is it to go out there and win 3 of 3?
Man, it's really good. Like I said, I try to keep my mind on that. I heard about it from you a couple of weeks ago, and just really trying to focus on each race as it comes. I think we got Talladega next week, and that's kind of a crapshoot. don't really have a plan for what we're going to do there. You can be really good and get caught up in somebody else's mess. But it's one race at a time. We had a couple bad races at Homestead, and I think it was Texas we're kind of rebounding from. And every win helps. It just happens to be in these Wheelman Showdowns. So, I'd definitely be happy to get a new wheel, but it's 1 week at a time. Got to keep your mind focused.
Absolutely. And you had, of course, a new paint scheme on the hood here tonight. Great looking ride. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm doing my own designs with Alicant Design, but duct tape and shear tape and T-Rex tape, they've kind of partnered with me for the last couple of years. I cannot thank those guys enough. Also got Carolina Simworks. It's been on the car. We're going to have iRace and iFlag on there pretty soon. So we got some big plans ahead. Just can't thank all my sponsors enough. Can't thank my teammate Sam Crow. He barely made the race tonight, but he got in an early wreck, and I kept talking to him, and lo and behold, he ends up in 12th. So I got to congratulate him, and just thank all my teammates from Steel Horse Racing, and thank God for everything it does for me, and hoping everybody stays safe out there with coronavirus and staying at home, and we're ready to get back out there just like everybody else is.
All right. Well, like you said, 1 week's time, Talladega Motor Speedway, always a crazy race. And you kind of said it best. You don't have a plan. Well, I don't think anyone really ever has a plan when you get to Talladega. You can say you have a plan, but you don't. It's out the window on lap number 5. But nonetheless, you'll need a little bit of luck at Talladega Motor Speedway. So I wish you the best of luck next week, and we'll see you then.
All right. Sounds good. Like I said, we started up front at Daytona, and that didn't end well, so you might see a couple of us riding in the back next week, so till the very end. So that's the plan for right now, but we'll see.
All right, well, we'll keep an eye on it there, Greg, but congratulations on going back to victory lane here tonight.
Thank you, guys, and thank you guys for broadcasting the races. Like I said before, knowing these races are broadcasting, and our sponsors can watch them and our friends can watch them, it makes it a huge deal for every driver out here, and thank you guys for what you do.
Absolutely. And, of course, we'll be back same time, same place next week at Talladega, so we're looking forward to that. But, Greg, we'll let you go celebrate with your crew, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you, guys. See you next week.
All right. Well, Greg, I think pretty much all we have to do is possibly go down through tonight's rundown, and there you see it on the screen. Greg Evans getting the win. Will Worstler coming home in second. Grant Brown with the rebound to finish in third. Craig Stykes coming home in fourth in the 57 machine. Mitch Brown coming home in fifth. John Broussard in sixth. Alan Young seventh. Adam Drisky eighth. Brian Yazik coming all the way up into ninth, and John Jenkins running out the top 10.
Clarence Bonner going to start off the second 10 with an 11th place finish. Sam Crow coming home in 12th. Tyler Seville comes home in the 13th position. Jimmy McKee coming home 14th position, with Tim Knott rounding out the top 15. Chris Bouchard and Kelsey Rogers, the final drivers to finish on the lead lap. 17 cars finish on the lead lap. Brandon Stokes, Mark Myers, and Michael Krobach round out the top 20. Peter, one lap down.
Yeah, and of course, coming home in the 21st position is the number 1 machine of Jason Stewart. Lee Staples in the step tire, number 26, comes home in 22nd. Jared Haggerty in the number 6 car finishes in 23rd. That Cheerwine machine had a great run going until that late race accident. Doug Mullins in the 18, similar deal. He comes home 24th. Michael Whiting barely made it into tonight's show, comes home in 25th, 5 laps down. Tony Schoen in the 33 comes home 26th spot, 6 laps down. Jonathan Holstein had lots of damage on that number 73 machine, comes home 27th, 8 laps down. Edward Bray, 28, 13 laps down. The 32 of Jordan Harnish comes home 29th. And Cody Spiker rounds out your top 30, Greg.
Round out the final rundown, we have Shane Parrish in the 81 coming home 71 laps down. James Lorello caught up in an accident. Troy Haight also caught up in that same accident that Lorello was caught up in. Danny Rogers, Travis McDaniel, who we saw struggling. Jackson Van Valkenburg, what a shame for him. Such a strong run in the early stages. Caught up in an accident, and rounding out the field will be Ty Hester, Alex Kesey, Nick Curling, and Chris Stouffer. 40 drivers took the green flag tonight, Peter, and it was definitely an interesting one here at Richmond tonight.
Yeah, those last 15 laps will probably go down in infamy here in the American Sim Racing Series as absolute chaos. We had drivers on different tire strategies, and boy, oh boy, it made for an interesting night up here in the booth, that is for sure. And of course, we get to go to another very interesting racetrack where we will have to stay on our toes for the entire race in 1 week's time at Talladega Super Speedway, the 2.66 mile racetrack, restrictor plates and all. It will be a very interesting race here on 3 Wide TV. Same place, same time here on YouTube. If you like this video, make sure to give us a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and you know what, maybe if you're even feeling up to it, hit the notification bell so you can get those notifications when we go live, and follow us for all the live racing that we have here going on 3 Wide TV. But for now, myself, Peter Short, Greg Rance, and Carlos Acosta manning the cameras. We want to give a big thanks to our friends over at SimTV for the camera shots that we get each and every week, and Thomas Morris for the graphics package, and of course everyone who makes it through our entire race in the chat. If you're still in the chat, give us a holla right now. But it should be a great race next week. But from all of us here at 3 Wide TV, want to say stay safe, stay inside, stop the spread, whatever, flatten the curve, do whatever. It's almost over, folks. Knock on wood. Let's just get through it, and then we can be on the other side and go to restaurants and have fun and do all that good stuff. So, but we'll see you here, same time, same place next week, like I said, and we will see you then. See ya!